Good evening, everyone. Welcome. Tonight is Monday, April 7th, 2025. This is a meeting of the Local Board of Appeal and Equalization. I will call this meeting to order and will ask Ms. Larson to please call roll.
Coakley.
Here.
Foster Bolton.
Here.
Shack.
Here.
Wilburn.
Here.
Calvert.
Here.
Rameli.
Here.
Wearsum.
Here. Next item is approval of the agenda with, it appears, an addendum. Mr. Funk?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Good evening, City Council. I have three considerations for you this evening related to an addenda to the council agenda. First one is related to item 5A, which is Section A, Untested Appeals. Items 15 through 22 have been added since the publication of the packet last Thursday. Then the second item is related to item 5B, Section B, which is appeals to be referred to our advisors. Added numbers, items 2 through 4, like the item I just mentioned, were added after the packet was distributed last Thursday. And then the last one is item 5C, which is Section C, appeals to be referred to the assessing staff. We're adding numbers, items 2 through 3, and those have been additions since the distribution of the packet since last Thursday. So in summary, you have in all three sections of the agenda some additions since last Thursday's packet. Those are being noted here this evening, and then turn it back to you, Mayor and City Council, for your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Funk. So we've got the agenda, and it has been amended as relayed by Mr. Funk. We do need a motion. Councilmember Calvert.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve the agenda as amended.
And is there a second? Councilmember Rameli?
I'll second.
All right, we've got a motion by Councilmember Calvert and a second by Councilmember Rameli. Ms. Larson, please call roll.
Coakley.
Yes.
Foster Bolton.
Yes.
Shack.
Yes.
Wilburn.
Yes.
Calvert.
Yes.
Rameli.
Yes.
Wearsum.
Yes, motion carries. So item 4 on the agenda is the introductory report, and I believe Ms. Putz, you have that. So good evening, and thank you for being here.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. Tonight we are meeting as the Local Board of Appeal and Equalization. The purpose of this meeting is to provide a fair and objective forum for property owners to appeal their valuation and/or classification. It is the duty of the Local Board of Appeal and Equalization to determine whether the appellant's property has been properly valued and classified for the current assessment year. Per state requirements, all property is to be valued at its market value, and all property is to be classified according to its use. The appeal process assumes that the assessor has correctly valued and classified all property, and the burden of proof rests with the property owner. The local board has the authority to change the valuation or classification of a property for the current assessment year. Property taxes and prior year assessments are not within the jurisdiction of the local board. The purpose of the local board is to determine an accurate market value for property where an appeal has been filed. The local board does have certain limitations, and the local board cannot consider prior year assessments, reduce the aggregate assessment of the city by more than 1%, exempt property, grant a special program, order percentage increases or decreases for an entire class of property, or make changes benefiting a property owner who has refused entry of assessor. At tonight's meeting, we have 3 sections of appeals to address. First, Section A. This consists of appeals brought forth by the assessor. These are appeals that the assessor and property owner have agreed to prior to the meeting. They must be read into the record individually and can be approved with one motion. Next, Section B consists of appeals where the assessor and property owner do not agree. These properties are recommended to be referred to the advisors for their opinion of market value. The advisor's recommendation will be brought back to the local board at the reconvene for a decision, and the following advisors were previously appointed by City Council at the March 3rd meeting: Mia Beardsley, Ambrosia Severson, and Keith Swanson. And lastly, we have Section C, which are commercial appeals to be referred back to staff for further review. Once the properties on the agenda have been addressed, any walk-ins and appeals can be addressed on a first-come, first-served basis. After all appeals have been addressed, the local board will be continued till April 21st. This concludes my report. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Butts. So what we will do first is move to act on properties in Section A, which were reviewed by staff and agreed to by the property owner. If there is anyone present here tonight who would like to speak on behalf of any of the properties listed in Section A, if so, please indicate and we will have you come forward and do so. Is there anyone? All right, well then I will read these properties into the record. And bear with me a moment. I think I will. I mean, I can start with I can start with the ones that are not in the addendum, and then I'll need to study those. So anyway, I'm going to read these addresses into the record. The first is 3605 Oakton Ridge, and the assessor's recommendation for that property is $598,300. The second is 5745 Seven Oaks Court, and the assessor's recommendation is $955,000. The third item is 15608 Post Road, and the assessor's recommendation is $601,700. The fourth item is 2923 Plymouth Road, and the assessor's recommendation is $380,000. Next is 1509 Archwood Road. The assessor's recommendation is $985,000. The next item is 14303 Oakwood Road Extension. The assessor's recommendation is $1,300,000. Next item is 13505 North Street, and the assessor's recommendation is $526,500. Next is 4700 Eastwood Road. The assessor's recommendation is $900,000. The next item is 5920 Camelot Circle, and the assessor's recommendation is $575,000. Next is 11905 Minnetonka Boulevard, and the assessor's recommendation is, $650,000. Next is 14911 Belvoir Drive, and the assessor's recommendation is $416,000. Next is 5985 Roland Road, number 305. The assessor's recommendation is $255,000. Next is 2021 Hopkins Cross Road, and the assessor's recommendation is $315,000. Pardon me? Pardon me?
Sorry, Mayor, I thought you said 215.
No, I believe I said $315,000. Okay. Pardon me. Maybe my diction's going a little bad, but I think we're okay. So the last of the ones prior to the addendum is 10780 Cedar Bend, and the assessor's recommendation is $406,000. And then I will move to the items that have been added, and thank you to Councilmember Romali for assisting me. 2608 Crosby Road, and the assessor's recommendation is $4,317,700. The next property is 11120 Mill Run, and the assessor's recommendation is $854,000. The next item is 10201 Cedar Lake Road, and the assessor's recommendation is $8,168,000. The next item is 10111 Cedar Lake Road, and the assessor's recommendation is $8,168,000. Next is 10101 Cedar Lake Road, The assessor's recommendation is $8,169,000. The next item is 16516 Grays Bay Boulevard, and the assessor's recommendation is $2,200,000. The next item is 14801 Weishwood Road, and the assessor's recommendation is $642,100. And I believe the final item is, in this section, is 12301 Whitewater Drive, and the assessor's recommendation is $6,800,000. So we did not have anyone who wanted to appear in terms of Section A, so is there a motion to approve these items 1 through 22 in Section A? Councilmember Calvert.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve the values listed in Section A of the agenda items 1 through 22.
Very good. Is there a second? Councilmember Calvert. I mean, Commissioner Shack, excuse me, I'm doing this well.
That's okay.
I was thinking, are we council members or commissioners, or are we Board of Review members? But Councilmember Shack.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll second.
All right, we've got a motion by Councilmember Calvert and a second by Councilmember Shack. I'm doing really well with names tonight, just so you know. So, Ms. Larson, please call roll.
Coakley.
Yes.
Foster Bolton.
Yes.
Shack.
Yes.
Wilburn.
Yes.
Calvert.
Yes.
Remaley.
Yes.
Wearsum.
Yes, motion carries. So now we were moving to Section B, and these are appeals to be referred to the advisors. And let me just see if I can make this work here. Okay, I've got it this time. So, is there anyone, first of all, present here who would like to speak to any of the properties listed in Section B, items 1 through 4? All right, if you'd like to come forward, please come forward, state your name and address, and let us know what you would like us to hear.
Excuse me. Had some issues lately.
Well, good evening.
Good evening. My name is Thomas Green. I am an owner of 12700 Sherwood Place, apartment 207, Minnetonka, Minnesota. I come to this appeal for really only one basic reason. I've never attended appeal of this nature because normally I don't get into issues of dollars this way or that way. This appeal has brought me in because essentially what I have worried about the last 5 years I've lived there, I get 3 different assessments for a condo. 3 different assessments, and I kept saying to myself, why 3? You know, normally you assess a property like a house with 1 assessment. You would think a condo, which is a living place with a parking spot, would be 1 assessment. Well, I know when we bought it, we got 3 deeds, but I just thought, well, the deeds are really just to allow, at the time that it was built, to allow the builder or someone to change parking spots where people who have a condo, where they want to be. I don't know what happened. I understand that some people gets 1 assessment. I get 3. I'm not sure why the difference. In talking to the assessor, it came to my thinking that what's happening here is I've been double taxed on those garage stalls for the last 5 years by the value put on those garage stalls, which really have no value. You can't sell them to the general public. You can't do anything with them. You might be able to sell them to someone in the condo that wants another unit, But the only reason that you do that is that the guy who bought it wants to have 2 garage stalls, and rather than having to sell his property and then buy another one that has 2 stalls, the cost would be in tens of thousands of dollars. So I'm willing to pay quite a bit of money to get another stall at a lot cheaper cost. Or there may be a case where one of the owners has an extra stall and he needs money, desperately needs money, so he's going to sell it to another condo owner. But it can't be sold outside. So those sales should be totally disregarded. They're irrelevant to any assessment of any kind of value to anything. Because the only it's an income tax transaction. The only thing that happens is value gets transferred from one condo to the other. One condo's value goes down, the other goes up. It has no effect on the other entities in that building as far as value goes, because they don't get any benefit from any of that. So that's why I'm mainly here, because I believe that's what's taking place in those condos. Now, I was told by an assessor over the phone that not only are they doing this to me, they're also doing it to the people that have one deed. They're adding an additional, I don't know if it's $7,000 or how they arrive at this amount, because I can't figure how you'd ever come up with any kind of reasonable figure on a piece of property you can't sell. So that's why I'm here. Also, I do think that they overvalue things. I do have some analysis I've done on what I believe is probably something somewhat little closer to the parcel that belongs to the living entity, which was listed, which is property ID ending in 0092, which is listed at, or assessed at $449,400. Now, what I did is I took an ad for an actual sale that was in the market to buy, which had 2,300 square feet. Mine was 19, but I don't quibble about that. And then I took what two realtors told me it would be worth to sell. They're trying to get me to sell it. Or a mortgage banker came to me and wants me to get the equity out of it, which I don't care about. And taking those 4 entities, I come up with an average value of $435,000, 853, or $435,853.25 versus the 449. And I won't quibble that. If I would have been an A if that was the only issue, because I wouldn't have cared. But this double taxation upsets me, because I think it's illegal, unconstitutional, and there's no support for it at all. That's all I have to say.
All right, well, thank you very much. And what will happen here is we have some volunteer realtors who serve as advisors, and they'll look at your property and they will look at comparables, and hopefully we can resolve. I'm not sure exactly what's happening with the.
You better get the garage thing straightened out. That's the one I'm concerned about. I'm not concerned about the value of looking at all the other stuff.
Right.
I'm concerned about this issue of 3 separate values. One value being based on the market value of a unit, which when they are in the market, they go with the garage. They don't sell them without a garage space.
Right.
Versus using that value to get to the basic living part of my facility, and then adding an additional $7,000 for each parking spot.
Well, we'll have the assessors look, and we will have we certainly want you to be treated fairly and appropriately and comparably to the way other people are treated. And so we will, I don't have enough information. I can't say yes, no,
Well, I'd
or
like to know,
anywhere in between.
and get back to me, is how are townhouses taxed? Are they taxed extra for the garage space? Are homeowners taxed extra for garage space? And where's the legal justification for this?
Well-
Because
well,
even if you
I-
have a statute, it would be unenforceable because it's against the Constitution, against double taxation.
Mr. Green, I'll tell you what, we're not going to resolve this tonight.
Oh, I'm
There's
sure.
nothing to be, there's no way it's going to be resolved tonight.
I
But I will
understand.
tell you that if I lived in a house that didn't have a garage, and I had the same house that did have a garage, the value of the house with the garage would be higher. I'm pretty
I
conf-
agree with
I'm
that.
pretty confident of that. But
usually
we will,
wouldn't it-
we will assess, we will have the experts assess your concern, and we'll get back to you. But we're not going to resolve it tonight.
Okay.
Thank you.
You heard my story.
All right, is there anyone else who would like to address the board or review this evening? Is there anyone? All right, well then,
Tell us who number 2, 3, and 4 are on your list.
yes, if, I mean, you could come up, and we're not doing this in any particular order. If you would like to share some information about your property with us, please do. Otherwise, we're going to move on to the next properties. Good evening.
Good evening.
So please state your name and address and tell us which property is yours and what you would like to cover.
My name is Amy Ruzick. We have two properties. One
No.
for, what's that?
Okay, let's see. Do we need, I don't believe you are on this section, this section.
Okay.
So come back when we get to this section. Is there anyone here who would like to appeal something that is on this list, items 1 through 4? And Ms. Putz, if I'm not doing this right, let me know.
Mayor, you can hear them whenever you choose. We can vote on B before or after we hear from them.
Okay.
If you'd like to make a motion on Part B now, and then make a motion on Part C, and then you can hear from
Okay.
anyone else, that is okay.
All right, well, we'll do that then. So,
Thank you.
but we need to, let's see. So these are going to be referred to, the items here 1 through 4, and we haven't read them into the record yet. So, are we good, or should I read these into the record, or,
Yes, Mayor, sorry, you can read Part B into the record with just the addresses.
right?
And make a motion following that.
Okay, so we've got 4 properties that will be read into the record. The first is 17412 Sanctuary Drive. The second is 12,700 Sherwood Place, number 207. The third is 12,700 Sherwood Place, Unit G81. And the fourth is 12,700 Sherwood Place, Unit G74. So with that, these properties will be reviewed by the advisors and brought back to us we will reconvene on April 21st. Is there anything else that needs to be done here other than a motion? Okay.
Just a motion.
Then I will look for a motion, Councilmember Calvert.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to refer the properties listed in Section B to the advisors, number 1 through 4.
Very good. And is there a second? Councilmember Rameli?
I'll second.
All right, we've got a motion by Councilmember Calvert and a second by Councilmember Rameli. Ms. Larson, please call roll.
Coakley,
Yes.
Foster Bolton,
Yes.
Shack,
Yes.
Wilburn,
Yes.
Calvert,
Yes.
Rameli,
Yes.
Wearsome.
Yes, motion carries. So then that brings us to the next set of properties, and that is Section C. And these are properties that will be referred to the assessor's office for review. And then, is there anyone who would like to speak on the properties listed in Section C? Okay, very good. Let's see, we will, if you look at the list, we've got 3 properties. I'll read them, and then if anyone would like to speak to these, come in the order that they're read. The first is 12950 Isetta Boulevard. The second property is 5125 County Road 101. And the third item is 15802 Wayzata Boulevard. So they are read into the record, and they will be reviewed by the assessor when we reconvene on April 21st. So now, is there anyone who would like to comment on any of the properties, your property, that we have not considered thus far? And if so, please come forward, state your name and address, and we are interested in hearing what you have to say.
This is for other properties that...
Yes, yep. So please come to the podium, state your name and address, and then indicate what property you're concerned about.
Okay, thank you. My name's Uzma Samadani. I live at 2634 Crosby Road, and I'm the primary homeowner. I'm a single parent. I would like to appeal my property valuation because it's gone up almost 450% since I bought the property in 2015. And I understand that, obviously Minnetonka house values have gone up, but that to me seems rather exorbitant. None of the houses on my street have sold in the last 5 years for a property value that's even 80% as high as what they're valuing my property at. And so I'd like to request an appeal of that property value. And I have a list of 7 comparable properties, and none of them is valued at the same property value as my property.
Okay. So give us the address of your property again.
2634 Crosby Road.
Crosby Road, very good.
Yep.
All right, and so I'll turn to Ms. Putz and seek guidance in this circumstance.
Thank you, Mayor. I would recommend to refer property back to staff, and we will review between this meeting and the following meeting on April 21st.
Okay.
Very
you.
good. So yep, share. And you can get Ms. Putz's business card and reach out to her, and you'll get fair consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming tonight. Is there anyone else who would like to come forward and add a property to the list? And as you can probably tell, we're not going to take a lot of action tonight, but we will get you attention from individuals who can help you out. So please state again your name and address, and let us know what you would like us to know.
So I'm Mary Lillibridge.
My name is Amy Rusick. We're talking here about actually 15001 Lynn Terrace.
Lyndhurst.
Lynn Terrace.
Lind Harris.
Lynn Terrace.
Lynn
Terrace.
Terrace. Lynn Terrace. Excuse me. Okay. All right. Pardon me. I'm doing such a good job of listening tonight. So Lynn Terrace. We got it. Thank you.
And we're kind of maybe an anomaly. We're here because the value of our property has been devalued over 200%.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yep. It is land. Our house is not on that particular property. We purchased it in 2021, and the value at that time was listed at $194,000. It went up the year after with the value of $213,400, and it's been like that the next 3 years. For 2025, do I need to get closer? For 2025, we're being told $5,000. Go ahead. Did you want to say something?
Yeah. So when we bought the property in 2021, it was adjacent to the other property that we live on, and we bought the property on Cherry Lane first, and we were negotiating that, and the agent said to us, well, the seller does own this other piece of property that's adjacent to it, and she would be, she's thinking about maybe selling it. Would you want to do that? And it made sense to us at the time, so we bought it at market value, again for $194,000. And on that land itself, there was already a poured concrete slab gazebo. There's a pea gravel walking path, stairs that lead from Lynn Terrace down to the area. There's a pond there. There's a walking bridge. There's electrical outlets. There's a pump to generate a waterfall into the pond area. There are lamp posts there. And all of these things are electric at the house. We can turn them on and off. In fact, even our sprinkler system is on that piece of land as well. And there's also a spigot there that connects to the well to our house. So with all that said, we're stumped. Like, we really don't understand why the value of this land has gone down so much. I mean, even in the 3.5 years, whatever, that we've owned it, you know, I've had diseased trees taken out, put in new trees, many perennial bushes and plants and so forth put onto it as well. And we also pay to have it maintained, mowed in the fall pickup and stuff like that. So we're a bit stumped why it's gone down as much as it has.
And we have already had Amy, the city assessor, out, or the appraiser.
Amy
Okay.
McNamara came out, yeah.
Yep.
All right.
And she advised us to come here tonight.
Very good. Yeah, that's surprising to me. I don't have an answer for you either, but I think this is your right approach to get our staff to look at it and provide a fair assessment, because that certainly seems, I would be equally stumped
Yeah.
were I in your shoes.
May I just add, it is a half-acre lot. And we were hoping, one of the reasons why this is going to impact us negatively is we were hoping to leverage the equity in that lot to work on our home to make it accessible. Right now, last year, both our mothers were in positions where they had to go to one level living, and they couldn't come to our house because we would have to do a remodel. So if you take the property value from $13,400 down to $5,000, we have no equity.
Right. Understood. I would be concerned about that as well.
So what are the next steps that we take?
Well, I think come here tonight, then we will turn this one over to the assessor or the realtor advisors, and they'll take a look at the property and make a recommendation to us and to staff on what the assessment should be. So you'll get a more detailed look at your property to make sure that it is fairly assessed.
And will we be told when these realtors
Well-
will be looking at the property? People have been coming from the city without telling us.
Okay. I'll look to staff for that, and you can advise us when. I think we make an appointment, but Ms. Putz?
Yeah, Mayor, we would actually recommend in this case that it would be referred back to assessing staff. However, you as the local board do have the right to make that decision to refer to either the advisors or back to assessing staff. If it is referred to the advisors, we would call the property owners tomorrow morning to set up a time for our advisors to view the property Wednesday and Thursday of this week.
All right, and so you're recommending that it goes back to staff rather than to the advisors. So would property owners also have the opportunity to call and set up an appointment similarly? So whether it's the advisors or a staff member, they can make an appointment to make sure that they're there when you take a look?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Staff has been in contact with the property owners. We have not come to a resolution as to this point, so there is opportunity to resolve the matter prior to the April 21st meeting.
Okay, very good. So I think the recommendation, the most logical course is for you to continue to work with staff. And then if, I also think that if you're not able to resolve that, there are further steps that you can take in terms of getting a second opinion, I guess, if you will. So that's a recommended approach. And now the council hasn't acted yet, but if you have an opinion on that, you can share that as well on that approach.
Well, I have a question because I just don't understand what's the difference between staff and advisors.
Okay, well, the advisors are volunteer realtors who come, so if you buy a property, typically they do comparables. And so,
Full disclosure, I am a real estate agent as well.
okay. So, maybe some year you'll want to be an advisor. We're looking for volunteer, but we have a group of advisor or realtors who volunteer to be advisors to the staff. And so for these appeals, they will come out and take a look and provide an opinion to staff, and a written opinion as to what it would be. So it's essentially finding comparables for your situation. And then the goal here is to get the assessment right. People sometimes think, well, the city wants to make it as high as possible or whatever. We have no agenda other than to get the assessment of your property correct.
Okay, thank you.
So I hope that's helpful. Do you have any other questions?
I guess we just wanted to know the flow of what was going to be.
So what we will do right now is we will act on this, and we will seek a motion to turn this back to the advisors. Then you reach out to the advisor, to Ms. Putz or a member of the assessing staff who will talk with you before you leave tonight, and you can get things set up so you know what to expect.
Okay.
I hope that's helpful.
Very much.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks.
So, council, any comments or a motion, recommendation?
And Mayor, we do still need a motion on section C, I believe.
Yes. Okay. Thank you for that. Well, we'll do that next, and then we'll go back to this item. So, the section C appeals, they will be referred back to the assessing staff. We need a motion to refer the properties listed in section C, the 4 properties. I believe it's 4. 3, excuse me.
Mayor, you can make one motion if you'd like for the 3 properties listed in C and the 2 that we heard tonight.
All right. Well then, so we'll do that. We'll do the 3 listed and the 2 that we heard tonight. Councilmember Calvert.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move to refer the 3 properties listed in section C and the 2 properties that were appealed in person to assessing staff.
Very good. And is there Councilmember Romali?
I'll second.
All right. And Councilmember Wilburn, did you have anything?
No, it's fine. It just was unclear to me whether it was going to assessing staff or to the advisors, and whether the property owners had an opinion on that, but that's fine.
Okay. And I think we settled on that it would go back to assessing staff with the understanding that there could be a follow-up to that as well. Is that correct, staff? Okay. So we've got a motion by Councilmember Calvert and a second by Councilmember Romali. Ms. Larson, please call roll.
Coakley,
Yes.
Foster Bolton,
Yes.
Shack,
Yes.
Wilburn,
Yes.
Calvert,
Yes.
Romali,
Yes.
Weersum.
Yes, motion carries. So let's see. I think that covers it. Is there anything further we need to do, Mr. Funk?
Thank you, Mayor. Maybe I could lean on Ms. Putz just to provide a little more explanation on the process. And I'll just kick it off by saying that in the city of Minnetonka, we have roughly 20,000 parcels that are part of this assessment process. So there's an extensive review of those parcels, and Ms. Putz and her assessing staff do a wonderful job at doing that. It's a heavy lift every year where they take a look at all of our parcels to work on the fairness that you talked about, Mayor and City Council. And so in that process, what starts here this evening is anyone that has concerns, any property owner that has concerns over their value makes notice to the city. And so that's what led up to this evening, is making notice to the city. Often folks first reach out to our assessing staff to work with our assessing staff first. However, tonight as part of the process, people can also come in person. And so that's what you've heard this evening, is some property owners that have come forward in person. It's harder to make those assessments in person on the fly tonight because there's obviously calculations that need to be made, and our staff gets intricately involved in that. And so with section C this evening, what you're doing is in essence turning that back over to our assessing staff to work with those 5 property owners, because there hasn't been that extensive deeper dive that usually would take place. And so that'll happen first in the next 2 weeks. Really what happens between now and then April 21st is either the assessing staff, as noted in section C, will work with those 5 property owners, and then the properties listed in section B tonight, that's where our advisors will really get involved, and they will work with the properties noted. Those property owners are the opportunity to work with the advisors. You heard this evening that homeowners often do calculations and do comparables. That is part of the process, so they will have an opportunity to share that with the advisors. And then the advisors will take an objective look at staff's recommendations, the work and points that are being made by the property owners, and then all that data comes back to you on April 21st for your second meeting of this board, where you'll make final determinations. And so you'll have more information coming back to you at April 21st, where again you will have final decisions on those values. Again, then the process does get extended from there if there are further disagreements about the values that are determined. Then I just turn over to Ms. Putz if she'd like to add to that process.
Ms. Putz, good evening.
Thank you, Mayor. That covers it pretty well. I feel like the motions made tonight were appropriate, and we're working through the process.
All right, well, thank you very much. So that is on the Local Board of Appeal and Equalization. That's it for tonight. So we don't adjourn, but we do recess. And do we need a motion for that, to recess, or no?
We're going to recess.
Recess the Local Board of Review. Okay, so do we need a motion, or we just move on to the council meeting?
Yeah. Mayor, it's recommended that you have a motion to recess and continue the meeting to 5:30 on Monday, April 21st, 2025.
Very good. Councilmember Mailey?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll make a motion to recess and continue the LBAE meeting to 5:30 p.m. on Monday, April 21st, 2025.
Very good. Is there a second? Councilmember Wilburn?
Second.
All right. A motion by Councilmember Rameli and a second by Councilmember Wilburn. Ms. Larson, please call roll.
Coakley,
Yes.
Foster Bolton.
Yes.
Shack,
Yes.
Wilburn,
Yes.
Calvert,
Yes.
Rameli.
Yes.
Wearsum.
Yes, motion carries. We are recessed. So should we just jump in, or do you want to take 5 minutes, or?
Mayor and Council, it is up to you. Our meeting is scheduled for 6 o'clock. It can start at any time after 6
right.
o'clock, so it's up
All
to
right,
you
well,
whether you want to.
we'll just keep things rolling. So thank you to everyone who was here for the Board of Review and Equalization. Thank you, staff. So I will move forward. It is still Monday, April 7th, 2025. We are now moving to a regular meeting of the Minnetonka City Council. I will call that meeting to order and to ask all those who are staying to please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Larson, would you please call roll?
Rameli,
Here.
Coakley,
Here.
Foster Bolton,
Here.
Shack,
Here.
Wilburn,
Here.
Calvert,
Here.
Wearsum, excuse me.
Here. Next item is approval of the agenda, and I am not seeing any addendum. Mr. Funk, are you, anything?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. There is no addenda for tonight's consideration, so the agenda that's been presented to you stands.
Very good. So a non-amended agenda. Would somebody like to make a motion? Councilmember Wilburn.
I move approval of the agenda.
Councilmember Calvert.
I'll second.
All right, we've got a motion by Councilmember Wilburn, a second by Councilmember Calvert. Ms. Larson, please call roll.
Rameli,
Yes.
Coakley,
Yes.
Foster Bolton,
Yes.
Shack,
Yes.
Wilburn,
Yes.
Calvert,
Yes.
Wearsum.
Yes, motion carries. Next item is approval of minutes, and we have two sets of minutes. The first is the March 17, 2025 regular meeting minutes, and the second is the February 3rd, 2025 study session minutes. So are there any comments or a motion? Councilmember Calvert?
Thank you, Mayor. I make the motion to approve the February 3rd, 2025 study session minutes and the March 17th, 2025 regular meeting minutes.
Is there a second? Councilmember Foster?
I'll second.
All right, we've got a motion by Councilmember Calvert and a second by Councilmember Foster Bolton. I will say that I did talk with Mr. Funk today and made a slight correction or change to the regular meeting minutes, and I think the staff will confirm that my change is accurate. But other than that, we're all good. So, Ms. Larson, would you please call roll?
Romaili,
Yes.
Coakley,
Yes.
Foster Bolton,
Yes.
Shack,
Yes.
Wilburn,
Yes.
Calvert,
Yes.
Wearsome.
Yes on March 17th, and I will abstain on the February 3rd study session minutes. All right, so motions carry. So we are then up to special matters, and we have two tonight. And the first is the recognition of the 2025 Minnetonka Academy graduates and participants. So, Ms. Falk, are you, let's see, are you ready? I will get the right sheet of paper in front of me, and we'll take it from there. This just take me a moment, okay. So, first of all, we're here to recognize the 2025 Minnetonka Academy graduates. And the city truly celebrates this. The Minnetonka Academy is a program that provides residents with valuable insights into city operations and how the city works, and the dedicated work of the staff that keeps Minnetonka thriving. Over the past 5 weeks, residents engaged with city staff learning about public safety, parks, infrastructure, and planning, demonstrating a deep commitment to their community. The Academy is more than just an educational experience. It fosters connection with the city. By engaging with city leaders, residents took an important step toward active involvement in Minnetonka's future. Their dedication strengthens the city, whether through volunteering, serving on boards and commissions, or even pursuing public office. Minnetonka's success relies on passionate and informed residents, and their curiosity and commitments are sincerely appreciated. The involvement ensures that the city remains a wonderful place to live and grow. Graduates and participants, please come forward as I say your name and receive your certificate from Sarissa, who is standing to my right. Please stay standing in the front so that we can take a group photo along with the city council. So thank you all for being here. And I'm going to read your names, and there's just a couple that I might have a little, you can assist me on the pronunciation because I want to get it right. So first, we have Susan, well, I'll let you help me with Susan Bienick. Is she here? Okay, well, I hope I got her name kind of close to right. Next is Christopher Carlson. Next is Peggy Carlson. And then Sonia Eklund. And then Sarah Ellis. Owen Gonzalez. Mary Grove. Hamilton Hines. Elizabeth Johnstone. Wayne Johnstone. Ben, is it Messick or Mesick? Guy Milbert. Shane Neckerud. Jenny Resner. Jackie Smolin. Jeff Sundberg. And Nate Thornton. So then these are the folks who made it to at least four of the sessions. And then some participants could not make it to all of them, but we want to recognize them as well. They made it to at least 3 sessions. And it's Janet Ajax, John Ingham, Zen Liu, and Richard Toledo. All right, well, I would like to thank all of you for your participation and congratulate you all. So we'll give you a round of applause and then Sarissa, where do you want us all for a picture? Should we come down or should we'll come down? Okay.
Yeah, you can come in front. And maybe 2 lines, taller people in the back.
So that means I get to go in the front?
Always in the front.
I didn't move to the back.
Okay. Are we all good?
Yes, I think you're good. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Can't see everyone's face. Can you come a little bit closer, Paula?
Sure.
All right, we're good. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right, and I want to thank everyone for participating again. The Academy really is beneficial, not just for the participants, but also for staff to get to know our residents and share about what we do. And I just think it's a time well spent. So thank you so much for participating. All right, get myself organized here. So, special matters, the next item is, in special matters, is the Arab American Heritage Month proclamation, and I've asked Councilmember Shack if she would read that proclamation.
Thank you, Mayor. Whereas Arab American Heritage Month was first recognized at a national level in April 2021, marking an historic acknowledgement of the contributions and presence of Arab Americans across the United States, and whereas Arab Americans have been an integral part of the American story, contributing richly to our nation's history, culture, economy, and public life through achievements in medicine, law, business, education, technology, government, the arts, and more. And whereas Arab Americans have often faced discrimination, bias, and stereotyping, yet they continue to build strong communities, engage in public service, and advocate for justice, equity, and inclusion. And whereas the Arab American community is composed of a diverse group of individuals representing a variety of cultural traditions, religious beliefs, and national backgrounds. And whereas Arab American Heritage Month is an opportunity to celebrate the history, contributions, resilience, and rich cultural traditions of Arab Americans, and to foster deeper understanding and unity among all residents of Minnetonka. And whereas recognizing Arab American Heritage Month reaffirms our shared commitment to diversity, equity, and the full inclusion of all communities in civic life, now be it resolved that the City of Minnetonka does hereby declare the month of April as Arab American Heritage Month in the City of Minnetonka.
I'll even turn my microphone on. Thank you, Councilmember Shack. Next item is reports from city manager and council members, and so we'll turn first to Mr. Funk.
Again, thank you, Mayor. Good evening again, Council. A couple things for your consideration this evening. First off, applications for the Minnetonka Police Department's Youth Leadership Academy are now open. This is open to 14 to 17-year-olds, and Council, I know you've expressed youth programming, so this is a nice opportunity for 14 to 17-year-olds. It is a free summer program that is a behind-the-scenes look at law enforcement, team building, other activities, and leadership training. Applications are opening on April 13th, so if you know of anyone or anyone that might be listening this evening, more can be learned on our website. And then the annual tree and shrub sale will open up soon. It is coming up in May. I know it's the beginning part of April, but it is open on our website, and we do have some information out there for residents. I do want to note that in context, for the past 20 years, Minnetonka residents have purchased more than 21,000 trees and shrubs at a reduced cost with this program. As you know, this program has helped the community maintain our very valued tree canopy. We often talk about around that 58% of our city's tree canopy, and it's one of the highest in the metro. We're very proud of that, and it's contributed to our annual tree sale. The pre-sale will start on May 5th, with the general sale opening on May 12th. So if anyone, again, is interested in that, you can start to look for information on our website. And it is that time of year. I know it's a little colder today than some of our recent days, but there are some of those springtime activities happening here at the city. City staff have put docks in at our Grays Bay Marina this past week, so we're gearing up for the opening of Gray Bay's Marina. Mr. Manchester and his staff have begun potholes. I think that is that time of season as well, as there's been the thawing of the winter, and certainly we're noticing potholes that, again, it is that time of year. So if you do hear from residents, Mr. Manchester and our public works staff are aware of those, and they are out and about starting that work. And then also want to mention that also with the nicer weather, it's pickleball time, and so our nets are going up for pickleball season. So again, we're gearing up for more outdoor activities here this year. And then last, just want to mention, also public works related, that the County Road 101 Trail Improvement Project is on the horizon, and our engineering division has sent out our newsletter and correspondence to those residents. So we're starting to see that project, and that we'll start gearing up for that significant project, and we're excited to see that starting here this summer as well. So with that, Mayor and Council, I'll turn it back over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Funk. Council members, any reports that you would like to make? Councilmember Calvert?
Just a very brief one. This weekend is the beginning of Passover, and I would just like to wish everyone who celebrates happy Pesach, a happy Passover.
Anything else? Councilmember O'Malley.
Thank you, Mayor. Two quick things. On March 19th, I, along with the mayor, attended the Minnetonka Business Council. Just want to congratulate both the staff and our partners at Wayzata Chamber, kind of for helping us grow this kind of business council, which started last year. It's continuing to grow, and look forward to more quarterly meetings. Invite all business owners and others interested in business in Minnetonka to come and learn more and meet and connect with the city, learn about initiatives and opportunities, as well as connect with your fellow business leaders in the community. And then the second thing is to thank, again, Minnetonka staff and our firefighters. Really enjoyed attending the firefighters annual awards ceremony Saturday, a week ago from this past Saturday. Great opportunity to connect with our firefighters who serve the city so well, and to listen to them get a bunch of great awards and talk to a lot of great people. Had a really good time, and thanks to them and thanks to staff for putting that together.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? I'll just add. Yes, I was at the same two events, and the fire banquet is always a great event, and I'm always impressed with our firefighters, but the camaraderie and esprit de corps that exists with our firefighters is really inspirational, and it's a great group of people, and we do need more firefighters. So if you're interested in becoming a firefighter, anyone, this is a great place to be a firefighter, and reach out to Chief Fox or just call the switchboard, and people can get you set up in terms of where to call. The switchboard number is 952-939-8200. And if you have any interest in being a firefighter, it's a great opportunity for both you and the city. So with that, I don't see anyone else wanting to make comments. So we will move on to item 8, which is citizens wishing to discuss matters not on the agenda. This is an open mic opportunity. If you have something that you want the city to know, come forward, state your name and address. We will hear what you have to say. We will take no action tonight on whatever it is, but we will turn it over to staff for follow-up, and you will get follow-up from staff, and they will report back to us. And if there's any future council action needed, that will be taken. So is there anyone who would like to report to the council? Is there anyone? I have to ask 3 times, so is there anyone who would like to come forward on that? Okay, well then we'll move to the next item. Item 9 on the agenda is bids and purchases, and we have one item, 9A, bids for the police department roof project. And Mr. Manchester, I believe you have that.
It is. Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Before we enter bids for the police department roof project, we have some recommended actions tonight. We just wanted to put those up to start. A motion to award the contract for the police department roof replacement to Horizon Roofing with the base bid and then alternates in the amount of $676,500. A motion to amend the 24 and 25 CIP, and then further to a motion to direct me, the Public Works Director, to expend the funds provided they do not exceed the amended budget of $775. So something to consider as we get started. The project does relate to the strategic plan. This is desired outcome 5.1, so improve the reliability and efficiency of our utilities and facilities as part of our infrastructure and asset management piece. For some background, the project was reviewed by Council on February 10th, 2025. At that time, you ordered the improvements, accepted the plans and specs, and then authorized the bidding for this project. The roof structure had reached the end of its useful life, which is the need for the project. And then further at the time, we did discuss 2 other bid alternates that we would like to consider as part of the bidding process to see what kind of prices we could get on those as part of this, which included the community center link and the council chambers. The background, the current police station was built in 1974. It's about 7,200 square feet. It currently consists of an asphalt base with an existing steel deck, a number of layers of insulation, and then it's covered in asphalt and a membrane with a gravel surface. The existing R value, which is an insulation rating, is approximately 16.5. The other 2 alternates that we're considering, the community center link is around 1,025 square feet, and then the council chambers is about 1,800 square feet, and those constructions are similar to the police station. The proposed improvements would include we would remove the membranes and the vapor barriers down to the existing deck. We would provide a different type of insulation consisting of a polyester reinforced. The roof would be white. It is currently not white, so it would certainly have a heat effect that would be very beneficial, and it would have a 30-year warranty. Based on the white design, it reflects more sunlight and it absorbs less heat, so it can reflect up to 60 to 90% depending on the situation of the white roof and the sun. So it does reduce the heat load on the building. The new R value would be around R31. And then this would be similar for both alternates that we're proposing as well. Just to talk about the R value a little, that's essentially the insulation rating. And so the 2020 code adopted would require an R rating of 30 or greater. In this case, we are above that. It meets the original sustainability goals of the public safety facility. So at the time, if some of you may recall, when the public safety facility was constructed, there was a group of folks that looked at how we could be sustainable as we constructed those buildings, and this would meet those criteria and kind of follow that plan as well. So it'd be consistent with what was constructed on the original building. And then it's improved energy savings. You know, with the increased insulation, it's a huge savings compared to what it had been, more than double. So we opened bids on the 12th of this year. 3 bids were received. Our low bid is Horizon Roofing. They have completed other projects in the area. Staff is tonight recommending the base bid of the police station roof as well as the 2 alternates. I mean, it's certainly council's decision if they would choose not to. And then if the recommended actions are approved, it would begin in May and be completed in the fall. The base bid project funding is included in the 2025 to 2029 capital improvements, so the police station roof could be constructed without an amendment to the CIP. We are at this time recommending amendments to construct the other 2 alternates. One would include a 2024 amendment, and so the city had originally scheduled some window replacements at City Hall. Following the assessment, we found out repairs could be done and we didn't proceed with the full replacement of those windows, so we are proposing that to complete one of the roofs. And then the other is proposed with the PEG funding, which can be used for essentially the council chambers and broadcast related items. Both of those could be supported by funds that the city has. So So go back to the actions that I presented before, so I won't read them again, but these are what we're looking for from you tonight at your consideration. And Mr. Kevin Moss is here, also our facilities manager, if we do have specific questions. So I'll turn it back to the mayor. Thanks.
Very good, Mr. Manchester. Thank you. Council, any questions for staff on this item? Any comments? Councilor O'Malley.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to confirm, I'm assuming that the reason to include these additional, what called alternates, is basically to, I understand that we have some leaking and issues with the roofs here, so rather than wait for them to fail, they're also at the end of their extended life, and rather than have to pay somebody to come out on site separately, we're getting economies of scale economies by having this all done at once.
Yeah, Councilmember Melee, Mayor and Council, yeah, that's correct. We have had some leaks, they've been repaired, but correct, rather than waiting for them to fail, that's why we're proposing it. And there is an economy of scale when they're here, for sure.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Mealy. Councilmember Calvert.
She stole my line, so we're all good.
All right. And my comment was going to be along those lines. I quizzed Mr. Funk today, understanding that the roof is at the end of its useful life, but sometimes things that are at the end of their useful life still may have some life. And given that budgets are going to be challenging, I think, as we look forward, that if we can economize, we can. But I also know that there have been leaking roofs, and we're not signing up for that. So I think this is the right thing to do. So with that is a motion, Councilmember Shack.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll make the motion to award the contract for the Police Department roof replacement project 24010 to Horizon Roofing, and the base bid, and add the alternates 1 and 2 to them in the amount of $676,500, and to amend the 2024 and 2025 CIPs, and to authorize the Public Works Director to expend the allocated funds without further approval from the council, provided the costs don't exceed the amended project budget of $775,000.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember Romali.
I'll second.
Okay, we've got a motion by Councilmember Shack and a second by Councilmember Romali. Ms. Larson, please call roll.
Romali.
Yes.
Coakley.
Yes.
Foster Bolton.
Yes.
Shack.
Yes.
Wilburn.
Yes.
Calvert.
Yes.
Wearsome.
Yes, motion carries. Item 10 is the consent agenda, and these are items that are typically routine, so we don't act on them individually. I will read them into the record. If anyone would like to pull an item, whether a council member or someone from the audience would like an item to be pulled for further consideration, we will pull that item. We will vote on the remaining items and then circle back to that item and hear what the person who pulled it has to say, and then take action at that point. So item 10A is an agreement with the State of Minnesota Institution Community Work Crew ICWC program. Item 10B is joint powers agreement with Minnesota Department of Public Safety. And item 10C is ratification of a 3-year Microsoft enterprise agreement. Would anyone like to pull any of those items? Councilmember Coakley?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to pull consent item A.
All right.
She stole my line.
Okay, well, that happens. So let's circle back. Would anyone like to make a motion on items 10B and 10C? Councilmember Coakley.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to approve consent item 10B and 10C.
And is there a second, Councilmember Calvert?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll second.
All right, we've got a motion on items 10B and 10C by Councilmember Coakley and a second by Councilmember Calvert. Ms. Larson, please call roll.
Romali.
Yes.
Coakley.
Yes.
Foster Bolton.
Yes.
Shack.
Yes.
Wilburn.
Yes.
Calvert.
Yes.
Wearsome.
Yes, motion carries. So we will circle back on to 10A, which is pulled by 2 council members, but we'll turn it over to Councilmember Coakley.
Thank you, Mayor. I talked to City Manager earlier today about this consent item A, and I just had a couple questions, and my questions may change depending on how my questions are answered. I had talked to Mike Funk earlier about I just want to know, like, if this was this program, this work program, is it folks that are coming from the prison institution, or is it halfway house? And I also wanted to know, like, how much they were being paid, since we have a contract with the state of Minnesota. And so I just kind of had questions around that because, as most of you know, I've worked in employment working with men coming out of prison, and I know they tend to make very low wages. And I just wanted to know, like, what was the pay for these workers? And then also, I had a question around if we're hiring people who are out of institutions, so like Department of Corrections or halfway houses, I don't know what level of charges. Is it felony? I know felony cases usually go to prison, so Department of Corrections and halfway house, 1 year or less usually go to halfway house. So that may change based on the level of offenses. So I'm like, okay, is this a felony case? Is this a misdemeanor case? What type of cases are these? And then if so, for our city, whether it's misdemeanor or felony, I want to know if these people are in this work program, when they're done with the work program, and say, for instance, they're not in an institution, they came out and applied for a job within our city, do we hire folks who have criminal backgrounds to work for our city in the same line of work that they're doing in this position?
Thank you, Councilmember Coakley. Mr. Funk? Or Mr. Manchester, excuse me.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Coakley, Mayor and Council. The program is through the Department of Corrections, and so the folks that work with us currently are coming out of 3 locations, Lino Lakes, Faribault, and Stillwater. And so the Department of Corrections in the morning, they have a supervisor. They come to the city every morning, and then they return in the evening through the supervisor at the Department of Corrections. The program is voluntary, and so participants are not required. They sign up. The program is available within 12 months prior to a supervised release. And so folks that do choose to sign up for the voluntary program through the Department of Corrections, essentially it's available 12 months before. As far as the compensation goes, the Department of Corrections sets that. So the Department of Correction has authority on the compensation to individuals. The contract in your packet tonight is the contract that they offer us as a whole for the crews themselves. So the contract tonight would include 3 crews, but as far as the compensation to individuals, the Department of Correction actually sets that individually. As far as felony or misdemeanor, there's an eligibility requirement for the program, and so if folks do choose to participate and volunteer for the program, they are screened through the Department of Corrections. And so the Department of Corrections looks at a number of criteria. I can grab a few here too. So, for example, not to be considered a risk to the community, no current or prior criminal sexual conduct offenses, positive attitude, ability to physically do the work are just a few of those. And so they make sure they screen folks on their end and provide us with the individuals that have volunteered for the program. So I hope that answered it. If not, certainly let me know if there's others I can answer.
I just want to make one more comment. I've been in all of these prisons as a, when I worked at Emerge, I was, I guess, employment work coach. And so I know that typically the workers usually make very, very minimal wage, maybe like at sometimes $1.35. I mean, I've heard like different price points an hour. I don't know what it is since the last time. That was a while back in 2014 that I worked for Emerge. So it's been a long time. But one of the things that I really think about, and I just want this to be something that we all consider when we hire these folks that come and work in our community, that yes, it's giving them an opportunity to get out of prison. Yes, it's giving them, some of them, opportunities to get job skills, but also it is another way that our system take advantage of people who made a bad choice and end up in the prison system. And so when we're doing these things, I just want us to know that when they come out, if we're going to take, and I'm trying to walk this like lightly because, you know, everyone don't see it that way, but I do, especially because people of color are really impacted at a higher rate of being incarcerated, and I cannot sit here and be quiet about it. But I hope that we can give these same people who come work in our city opportunity to come out and make fair wages when they're released from prison, because if they're in Lino Lakes, Faribault, or Stillwater, then that means they have a felony level case. And so I just hope that we will consider them when they come out and maybe apply for jobs, because when they come out, we know if they're not working a livable wage job, then they go back to committing crimes. And I just would hate for one of those folks to be working in our city and go back because they had to commit another crime, or they didn't have to, they never have to. So, but, you know, just, yeah, that's just my thought process. So maybe in the future, we may not be able to do it today, but maybe in the future, if it would be nice if we could find out how much they make an hour, so that we can consider, if we're not already hiring people with felonies at some point in our city, to give these folks another chance making fair wages. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Coakley. Are there any other comments from Councilmember Foster Bolton?
Yeah, so my question was kind of along the same lines, but I guess we don't know the success rate after they finish the program, right?
Councilmember Foster Bolton, Council and Mayor, I did talk to the Department of Corrections today following a few questions. Let me see if I can find it here. I'm sorry, I got a few papers, but the recidivity rate generally on this program in particular is 15% over the next 3 years. And so it's actually quite a bit lower. The next program is at 36%. And so we think it's a really good program, and that's why we've been participating. Also, they indicated it's continues to build, skills. There's around 120 people that participate in this program in particular. In the city, the contract tonight would propose 3 crews, around 24 of those 120. So we think it's a really good program. It seems to be very successful.
Are there other?
Sorry.
Excuse me, go ahead.
And then, so in the packet, you talked about like incorporating into the culture of Public Works. And can you talk about like what that looks like?
Sure. Councilmember Foster Bolton, Council Mayor, we incorporate the individuals directly into our culture at Public Works, and so they share the lunchroom, they share coffee, they share lunch events with us. If we have our spring barbecue, they're part of that. They sit with us. We incorporate city crews work side by side with them. So when we go cut trees, we're all working together. It's not a matter of one group is doing one thing, one group is doing another, but we all just work together. They're like an extension of city employees, essentially.
Thank you, Mr. Manchester. Other Councilmember Shack.
Thank you, Mayor. We've talked about this quite a bit before, and I appreciate the comments of Councilmember Coakley. I think it's a really good, it's something that came to mind for me as well, is that, it'd be nice to take advantage also of these folks' skills that they've developed and their experience within Public Works when opportunities arise. I also just wanted to comment, I happened upon the crews quite a bit in Big Willow Park and around my neighborhood, and they're just really, it's obvious hard workers. They're very gracious with my less than well-behaved dog. They do like to have him jump on them. So it's, it's really, I'm glad we have this opportunity. I do agree that there's some pay equity issues inside the corrections system, and I don't think we have a lot of say in that, but, to the extent that we can advocate for a slightly better conditions, I certainly wouldn't have a problem with that. So thanks for, there's a fine line between work crews and giving people opportunities. We don't want to take advantage of people, but I know that this is popular. People want to do it, and I appreciate the city's willing to be kind of out on the front of this, so, thank you.
Councilmember Wilburn.
So I also discussed this with the city manager, and we've had discussions previously around this issue. So I just wanted to weigh in that like, it seems like the majority of the council, this is something that we're concerned about, and clearly don't want to participate in the exploitation of anyone. And I don't know if it was explicitly answered, Councilmember Coakley's question about whether the city hires people, but in my discussion with the city manager, he said that yes, the city has actually hired some of the people that have graduated from this program, and it depends on, they don't always get everyone to apply, and sometimes the timing doesn't work out, but they have successfully hired people into the program.
Thank you, Councilmember Wilburn. Anyone else? I'll just comment. I mean, I think we all, Mr. Funk heard probably from all or most of us with similar questions. And I think from my perspective, I mean, I understand why a program like this exists and why it's probably structured the way it is. But I'd like to understand more about the program. It might be interesting. I don't know if we as a council do field trips or anything, but it'd be interesting to hear from people from the Department of Corrections about the mechanics of the program, maybe some statistics on, clearly the recidivism rate appears to be much lower than others. That's a win. That's great. 15% is still higher than I'd like it to be, but it's way better than some of the other numbers. But we care about people, and we believe in redemption, and we want people to have chances. So when we talk about being an inclusive and welcoming community, I'd like to think that we will be hiring some of these people who can benefit our residents and benefit from working here and maybe living here. But I also recognize that people who are at these different locations may not want to work in Minnetonka because they live on the other side of the state or the other side of the metro. So, it's a complex issue. But I think because we've had these conversations in the past, if there's an opportunity to maybe do a little deeper dive on the program, because I generally believe it's a good program, but I don't really know as much as I could I'd like to be a proponent of the program because I think it really works well for the city, and I do believe it is an opportunity for the inmates, but we want them to be successful after they're done paying their debt to society. So I think it's a good program, but I'd like to learn more too, so I'll throw that out. So with that, Councilor Coakley, would you like to make a motion?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I make a motion to approve consent item A, agreement with the State Minnesota Institution of Community Work ICWC program. Thank you.
Councilmember Foster Bolton.
I'll second.
All right, we've got a motion by Councilmember Coakley and a second by Councilmember Foster Bolton. Ms. Larson, please call roll.
Romailly.
Yes.
Coakley.
Yes.
Foster Bolton.
Yes.
Shack.
Yes.
Wilburn.
Yes.
Calvert.
Yes.
Wearsum.
Yes, motion carries. Item 11 is consent agenda items requiring 5 votes, and 11A is an interim use permit and variance for the relocation of an existing garden market at 17501 Highway 7. And that's a consent item. Would anyone like to pull this, or would someone like to make a motion? I mean, as I read the report, the market is going back to where it used to be because there was an alternate use proposed for that area that has not moved forward. So, Councilmember Wilburn.
I will make a motion to adopt the resolution approving the permit.
Is there a second, Councilmember Calvert? So we've got a motion by Councilmember Wilburn, a second by Councilmember Calvert.
Yeah.
Ms. Larson, please call roll.
Romailly.
Yes.
Coakley.
Yes.
Foster Bolton.
Yes.
Shack.
Yes.
Wilburn.
Yes.
Calvert.
Yes.
Wearsum.
Yes, motion carries. And Councilmember Calvert, I didn't really give you the chance to make your second, so I took your raising your hand as a second. I hope that is so noted officially. I apologize for that. Sometimes I'm kind of enthusiastic about moving on, so my apologies for that. So item 12 is introduction of ordinances, and we have none. Item 13 is public hearings, and we have several of those. And Ms. Thomas, are you replacing Ms. Wishnack tonight, I assume?
There were some, no one can replace Ms. Wishnack, but I'm going to give it a go here.
Well, that's well said. So anyway, so Item 13A is an on-sale wine and on-sale 3.2 malt beverage liquor license for Abang Yoli Minnetonka LLC, doing business as Abang Yoli at 12940 Minnetonka Boulevard. And so I will turn that over to Ms. Thomas.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is a continuation of a public hearing from March 3rd, and since that time we've conducted the investigative report. There were no findings cited in that report, so we do recommend that the Council continue the public hearing, it already started, and then grant the license.
Very good. So, Council, the public hearing is opening, but are there any questions anyone has that they would like answered? All right, this public hearing is open. If anyone would like to comment on this item, please come forward and state your name and address and let us know what you want us to hear. And if no one does, no one has to, but it is a public hearing. All right, seeing no one, I will close the public hearing and bring it back to the council for comment or a motion. Councilmember Calvert.
Thank you, Mayor. This is the former location of People's Organic, my remote office location, and I was sorely aggrieved that it was no longer there, but I am super excited for this, so I'm very excited to make the motion to grant the license at Abang Yoli at 12940 Minnetonka Boulevard.
And a second?
Second with,
Councilmember Wilbur?
yeah, second with a short comment that I had the opportunity to visit Korea a few years ago, and so I'm so excited that this restaurant is opening.
All right. We've got a motion by Councilmember Calvert and a second by Councilmember Wilburn. I've got a quick comment too. I mean, one is I'm excited to have this building back in use and another restaurant in Minnetonka, particularly in that location. And I'm just wondering, will they accept my People's Organic gift card? But but that will have no bearing on their on my vote tonight. But I have a little issue there. But so we've got a motion by Councilmember Calvert and a second by Councilmember Wilburn. Any other comments? Ms. Larson, please call roll.
Romaili?
Yes.
Coakley?
Yes.
Foster Bolton?
Yes.
Shack?
Yes.
Wilburn?
Yes.
Calvert?
Yes.
Wearsome?
Yes, motion carries. Item 13B is a change in ownership for an existing on-sale brewer's tap room and Sunday liquor license and off-sale intoxicating liquor license to Unmap Brewing Company, LLC, at 14625 Excelsior Boulevard. And Ms. Thomas, is that you as well?
It is, Mayor. As you noted, this is also, or this license is required simply because of a change in ownership. It is also a continuation from your March 3rd meeting. There were no findings cited in our investigative report, and so staff does recommend approval of the license after you continue that public hearing.
All right. Well, the public hearing is open, but council, any questions first? No? All right. Is there anyone here who would like to comment on item 13B regarding Unmap Brewing Company? Anyone? Anyone at all? All right. Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing and bring it back to the council for a comment or a motion. Councilmember Calvert.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just really glad that this change of ownership is sort of keeping Unmapped whole and in the same location. So I, again, am very excited to make the motion to grant the license for Unmapped Brewing Company at 14625 Excelsior Boulevard.
Very good. Councilmember Romaili.
And I'll second.
All right. We have a motion by Councilmember Calvert and a second by Councilmember Romaili. Ms. Larson, please call roll.
Romaili?
Yes.
Coakley?
Yes.
Foster Bolton?
Yes.
Shack?
Yes.
Wilburn?
Yes.
Calvert?
Yes.
Wearsome?
Yes, motion carries. Item 13C is a temporary on-sale liquor license for Boom Island Brewing Company, LLC, at 5959 Baker Road. This is a public hearing item, but the public hearing needs to be opened. But before we do that, council, any questions for, well, let's see, Ms. Thomas. And what are your comments? Excuse me, I'm jumping ahead. You can tell I'm kind of.
That's all right.
Maybe I'm antsy. I mean, maybe there's a basketball game tonight. I don't know. But anyway, Ms. Thomas.
I will be quick, Mayor Wearsome and Council. This temporary license would allow Boom Island to host an outdoor and kind of medieval-themed event called Nights and Pints. It would include live music, food truck vendors, and night sparring demonstrations that are done by a group that regularly performs at events like the Renaissance Festival. Staff does find that all of the information is in order, and we recommend approval of the temporary license, including allowance for a sporting event, these demonstrations, to occur in conjunction with that license.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Thomas. Okay, after that, are there any questions from staff? It sounds good and exciting. Is there perhaps a motion?
Yeah, and I have one comment. So my daughter played with the Lore Weavers on St. Patrick's Day weekend, and may I say they're super fun Celtic style band, and they sound especially good with my fiddler daughter playing along. So yes, I'd like to make a motion to grant the temporary on-sale liquor license for Boom Island.
And a second. Councilmember Wilburn?
I will second.
All right, we've got a motion by Councilmember Calvert and a second by Councilmember Wilburn. Ms. Larson, please call roll.
Romalee?
Yes.
Coakley?
Yes.
Foster Bolton?
Yes.
Shack?
Yes.
Wilburn?
Yes.
Calvert?
Yes.
Wearsome?
Yes, motion carries. So that brings us to 13D, which is a temporary on-sale liquor license for Resource West, a valued nonprofit in our community, at 14600 Minnetonka Boulevard. And Ms. Thomas, one more time.
Yes, Mayor Wearsome, this is a temporary license, as you noted, that would allow Resource West to sell beer and wine during its Spring Fest fundraiser, which will be on May 2nd at the Minnetonka Community Center. Again, all of the information on this request is in order, and so staff recommends the council approve that temporary permit.
Very good. So we need to open the public hearing and to ask, is there anyone who, either the applicant or anyone who would like to report on this item at Resource West, the temporary liquor license? Is there anyone? All right, I'm not seeing anyone. I will close the public hearing and bring it back to the council for your consideration. Council, any comments or a motion? Councilmember Calvert?
Thank you, Mayor. This is a very important organization in our community that really does help keep many of our neighbors afloat, and I think they're unfortunately going to become increasingly important in the days ahead as we are experiencing some market volatility and people are losing their personal wealth. And so anything that we can do to support Resource West, you don't have to wait to go to an event to contribute to them, but I am very happy to make the motion to grant the license, temporary on-sale liquor license for Resource West.
Very good. And a second? Councilmember Foster Bolton?
I'll second.
All right. We have a motion by Councilmember Calvert and a second by Councilmember Foster Bolton regarding this temporary on-sale liquor license for Resource West. Ms. Larson, please call roll.
Romalee?
Yes, and I look forward to attending.
Coakley?
Yes.
Foster Bolton?
Yes.
Shack?
Yes.
Wilburn?
Yes.
Calvert?
Yes.
Wearsome?
Yes, motion carries. So item 14 is other business, and 14A is a preliminary plat for a two-lot subdivision with variances at 5038 Dominic Spur. And Ms. Thomas, it looks like it's still your turn.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Before I start talking about the actual proposal before you this evening and staff's analysis, I'd like to take a couple of minutes to talk about the development and construction regulations that apply to this property in its current configuration. So this property is zoned R1 low density residential. And with that designation, again, comes certain standards. Those include minimum lot area and dimensions, which are shown on the screen. And within that district, structures are required to maintain a certain setback or a distance from property lines. And when we apply those setbacks to the property and the property lines, we come up with a buildable area. And the buildable area requirement in the R1 zoning district is 3,500 square feet. And within that 3,500 square feet, we need to be able to find a 40 by 40 box, a square, if you will. The property is also subject to the city's steep slope ordinance. And by definition, a steep slope is a slope that rises at least 25 feet and has an average grade of 20%. So this property contains steep slopes of up to 46%. The steep slope ordinance really is considered one of our natural resource protection ordinances. It limits how and where construction can occur on a steep slope. And the intent of that ordinance really, I think, is twofold. First is to preserve topography for aesthetic reasons, because varied topography is really part of the city's natural resource fabric. It's also necessary for functional reasons, because cutting into or opening up a steep slope has the potential to cause significant drainage and erosion issues, not only at the time that the slope is cut into, but into the future. This property is also located in the city's Shoreland Overlay District. And overlay zoning districts are just that. They're a district that overlays on top of the underlying zoning district regulations another series of regulations. The standards in our Shoreland district are based on the standards of Minnesota stormwater management rules, so state rules. The Department of Natural Resources reviews local ordinances to ensure that they comply with those state rules, and ours do. Planning and Natural Resources staff, myself included, worked with the DNR in drafting our current ordinance in 2008, and then we did a slight amendment to that ordinance that was also reviewed by the DNR in 2012. Shoreland overlay rules, especially when it comes to construction and development, really pertain to impervious surfaces, clearing activities, and setbacks not only from public waters, but from the top of bluffs. If you're like me, when you think of the term bluff, you think of Winona or Red Wing or places on the river. But a bluff, by state rules, is just a steep slope in a shoreland district. It's called a bluff in our ordinance to be consistent with the state rules, but it is a slope that rises 25 feet and has a grade of over 30%. As I noted before, the steep slope ordinance protects steep slopes wherever they may be, but the shoreland ordinance applies even a greater level of protection to those slopes. It requires a setback from the top of the slope. Really, again, intended to ensure that those slopes aren't opened up and cause potentially harmful drainage or erosion into our public waters. What I've done for the remainder of the report is I've taken the plan, which you see on the left-hand side, and staff's analysis, which has a lot going on, and just created a diagram that's on the right-hand side that I think is a little bit easier to read, and I'm going to use that for the remainder of my report. So getting into the actual property and the proposal, this property is quite large. It's 2.5 acres in size, but much of it is considered a steep slope or a bluff. So when we apply the property line setbacks to the property, and then the setbacks from the top of a bluff, it significantly reduces the buildable area of the property. In fact, the existing lot has just 950 square feet of a buildable area. And in that, we don't have that 40 by 40 square. So in its current configuration, this property is non-conforming. It does not meet city standards. So now to the proposal. The Lang family has owned this property for over 60 years, certainly longer than the current zoning ordinance or subdivision ordinance have been in effect. The family built a house and a detached garage on the property in the mid-1960s, and those structures were demolished end of summer, early fall last year. The applicants subsequently submitted a application to subdivide that property into 2 lots. The application includes not just the plat, but 10 variances embedded within that, 5 for each lot. And those include dimensions, the lot with that setback, the buildable area. If you'll recall, there's only a very small area that is buildable on the southerly lot. The northerly lot would technically have no buildable area. Setbacks from the top of bluff, and then allowing construction within the bluff itself. There are a lot of details associated with this request, like extent of grading, volume of potential fill, stormwater management areas, how do we get to the stormwater management areas, and so on. But really the primary question that staff focused on is whether or not this application and the variances embedded in it, the variances that are needed to create these lots, are appropriate. If we can't get to creating the lots from staff's perspective, the details of how much grading and how much fill really don't matter. In staff's opinion, the variances simply are not appropriate. As the council is aware, especially those of you who served on the Planning Commission, the city may approve variances only when it finds that there are practical difficulties that prevent the applicant from complying with the code. And state statute outlines what we planners like to call the practical difficulties test. And it has 3 components, and all of those components must be met. The first is that the property owner proposes to use the property in a reasonable manner. Second, that the need for a variance is based on circumstances unique to the property, not created by the owner. And then third, that if granted, the variances would not alter the character of the area. It's staff's opinion that the variances needed to divide this substandard lot are not reasonable. It would create 2 substandard lots. It's also not reasonable from our perspective to allow construction resulting in potential site impacts within 30% to over 30% grades. Second, the variances, again, to create these lots are not due to circumstances unique to the property. Certainly the property size relative to the buildable area is very unusual. But the variances are based on placing that property line in the middle of that property. That is a decision of the property owners, the applicants. So that is a circumstance that is created by the property owner and applicants. And then finally, staff does not believe that the variances would be consistent with neighborhood character. The majority of properties on Dominic Spur do meet minimum lot standards and are not, the homes are generally not built on this steep of slopes. The applicant has provided to city staff, the Planning Commission, and I believe some council members, a list of properties that they believe are similar to what they are proposing, and so they assert that they would serve as a precedent for your action here this evening. Again, staff does not believe that these are similar circumstances. Many of the properties on Dominic Spur and Drive that are referenced by the applicants were created between 1950 and 1970. The applicant is proposing to create lots this evening, or I should clarify, to create 1 lot. There is 1 existing. There is a property at Dominic Drive and Shady Oak Road that probably many of you have seen with a new home. That home and that lot was actually created through the combination of 3 vacant lots. So essentially that owner reduced possible impact to the water bodies by combining those lots and constructing just one home, which is really the opposite of what's being proposed here this evening. And then finally, the Solbecken development, which some of you may remember, which is on Shady Oak Road. It's a condominium development. That is actually built at the base of a slope. And that area is exempt from the bluff requirement because everything is sloping away from the public waters, not towards the public waters. To conclude then, staff certainly recognizes the applicant's property is very large, both in terms of the city's minimum lot size and relative to other properties on Dominic Spur. But it does not follow, in staff's opinion, that simply because it is large, it's appropriate for subdivision. The lot is in fact non-conforming in its current configuration. This would create 2 substandard lots, which staff feels is not reasonable and does not meet the variance standard. While the city is obligated to provide this property owner with reasonable use, we're not obligated to provide maximum use, which is what staff believes is being requested here. And so we do recommend denial of the preliminary plat with those variances. And I would turn it back to the mayor for questions.
Thank you, Ms. Thomas. I think you explained things very well, made it very clear, at least understandable by me. I won't speak for anyone else, but it was very helpful. So, council, any questions for staff? Councilmember Calvert.
Thank you, Mayor. I did have the opportunity to visit with the property owner and visit the property, and in the Planning Commission meeting, which I watched, and in my conversation with the property owner, there was some discussion of the bluff being man-made, and I was just wondering if that is something that staff has been able to determine if that is actually a man-made condition. And then, you know, whether it's man-made or not, it sort of is what it is at this point. And then how would we proceed? You know, what would be the difference between, say, a man-made bluff and a naturally occurring bluff?
Mayor Wisdom and Councilmember Calvert, staff has not been able to determine whether that's man-made or not. I did go back and look at a lot of aerial photography from the 50s and 60s, but there's not a lot of context for topography on those. So the first answer is I don't know if it's man-made or not. Second question is about whether or not we differentiate in the code, I think, between man-made and natural, and we don't, because a slope, especially a slope like this that is wooded, regardless if it was created 60 years ago or not, it is a slope with topography, and opening up that slope has the same potential for erosion and drainage, again, whether it was naturally occurring or created over time.
Thank you.
Other questions, Council? Councilmember Coakley.
I guess I just got more of a comment.
We're doing questions now, but we will have opportunity for comments.
Okay.
Yep. Let's see, any other council questions? Councilmember Wilburn.
So can you explain, like, when you're taking this into consideration, so there are no actual development proposals. It's asked, you know, how the owner intends to use the property, and he submitted these sort of general plans, but I guess I'm not sure, like, how they plan to use it factors into the decision. Like, would it be if they said, I just want 2 lots and I'm going to build a shed in the middle or something? would the recommendation still be the same?
Mayor and Councilmember Wilburn and Council, Staff's recommendation is really based on the creation of these two lots. These variances that are shown in red on the screen would be required regardless of the size of the home or the location of the home. Specifically, not sure which mouse is working here, but as you can see, the area in orange is considered the bluff. And by our ordinance, by the state rules, any structure needs to be set back 30 feet from that top of bluff, which gets me to this little red line here. And so regardless of home size and location, these same variances would be necessary. And I should say, and staff's recommendation on the creation of the lots would be the same.
Thank you, Mayor. That reminds me of another question, and Councilmember Wilburn's question also reminded me. So there was some discussion of FAR, and also I just started thinking, you know, the property owner, there was some discussion of building quote unquote modest homes, and I think that we've had a couple of proposals come through where we were promised modest homes on like R1A lots, and that is not what was built. How does it work? I'm assuming that we cannot dictate what size of home a developer would propose to build here. We can deny or approve the homes, but I mean, they're gonna come to us with whatever they come to us, correct?
Chair and Commissioner Calvert, typically speaking, when a proposal for subdivision comes before you, you're absolutely correct. The council is acting on the creation of the lots, not the size of homes. The caveat is that because the council has the McMansion policy, or written policy in your policy book, when a variance is requested, you can, by that policy, establish a maximum floor area ratio. In this case, I think I noted in the report that because the lots are so large, the maximum floor area would be 10,000 square feet. I think, and I maybe would defer to the city attorney on this, if the council was inclined to approve this, because it is a variance, or variances, and because the variances are related specifically, or mainly, to, let me back up. I'm not sure I'm trying to say. You may be able to apply a condition so long as there's a nexus or a connection between the condition that you're applying and the reason that you're applying it. And Mr. Nielsen can say it much better than I can.
Mayor, thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Calvert. Susie explained it very well in general with conditions imposed on land use applications, in this case, the variance. The condition must have a rational relationship or a nexus to the requested issue. So it should go to, in some sense, mitigate the exception that you would be granting the individual, so the specific type of variance. So in general, the law says that you shouldn't impose a condition that is completely unrelated, and so that would be the notion here, that if the council was inclined to consider approval and to consider a condition, you'd want to articulate what you view as the connection to the variance requested issue.
Thank you.
Other questions? Anyone? Councilmember Coakley.
I guess I have a question about when did the bluff requirements come into place? I thought I read it somewhere because I was wondering, at some point this bluff ordinance came into place, but if we didn't have this in place, would this lot be able to be split prior to this bluff being in place? Just curious about that.
Mayor Wisham and Commissioner Coakley, that is a good question in that the Bluff ordinance in our ordinance is a little bit newer from 2008. Even if this property, however, were not in the Shoreland ordinance, the steep slope ordinance would still apply. And that steep slope ordinance says that to construct within a slope, the council needs to make certain findings. There are a lot of them, but I've just shown 3 up here. So if this proposal were to have come before you in, say, 2005, it does not follow that there would be no variances. There would still be the variances for lot width, certainly, and you would still have to consider whether or not construction within now called the steep slope would be appropriate. Does that answer the question?
It does. Thank you.
Other questions, council? I've got one, and please, I wanted to refer to this existing conditions chart. Because clearly the buildable area is small. And so we're being asked to do 2 lots. But if nothing existed there and nothing had been torn down, with the ordinances and the rules that are in place, whether they're city ordinances or state rules or whatever, and the applicant came forward with a single family or single housing unit proposed with these restrictions, would staff say, well, saying no would be a taking, so we have to apply it, or would it be a circumstance say, you know what, this really is not a buildable lot?
Council members and Mayor Wirsum, I'll start, and the city attorney may want to jump in. From a planner's perspective, again, the city needs to provide reasonable use to a property owner. Reasonable use of a single-family property on which there was previously a single-family home, I would say, is construction of another single-family home. So that generally, yes, staff would support some type of variance to construct a single-family home. The specifics of that, though, would have to be reviewed at the time that the home came in. For example, if someone were to come in and want to build in the steepest part of this bluff, staff may not find that that's reasonable, but staff may find that perhaps a front yard setback variance is reasonable to prevent construction. So the specifics of what staff would support, we can't say without a plan, but in general, yes, variances would be needed of some kind to provide for reasonable use.
Thank you. Mr. Nelson?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll just add a little bit. That was very well said once again. What we have here is a non-conforming lot of record, and the previous structure, single-family home and garage that was on the property was a non-conforming structure, and that was torn down. I believe the staff report notes in August of last year. So in addition to what Ms. Thomas said, the individual would also have non-conforming rights under state law to reconstruct a single-family home where the previous home existed for 1 year. So they would, that clock is running as well on that.
So when you say where that previous house, is that within the footprint of the previous house?
That's correct.
Okay, because I've heard that terminology before.
And that would be without any particular entitlements necessary from the city, but that would be a reconstruction on the same footprint.
All right, and that meter's running?
Correct.
Okay, very good. All right, council, any more questions? Otherwise, if the applicant would like to come forward and tell us, share your perspective, if you you're not required to, but if you'd like to, you're welcome to do so. Good evening.
Good evening. I am Paul Lang, one of the brothers that now are owners of the property. And I gotta say, I was so encouraged by all the yes votes. It was just one yes after another as you guys were sitting up here joking. But I do want to say thank you to all of the members up here who I met out at the property. Appreciate you all coming out to take a look at it, to understand how, from our perspective, it doesn't really feel like it's, I mean, I forget the woman's name that was talking back here, but that sounds really dire, but it doesn't seem that way to us. one of the things that we brought up with, I worked a lot with Drew and the Planning Commission, but the Shoreland District. Okay, so Shady Oak Lake, I suppose, is part of that, and all these homes down by Shady Oak Lake seem to be able to get these, you know, steep slope variances or steep driveways or steep backyards, and they're in the Shoreline District. Our property doesn't face Shady Oak Lake. Any kind of possible runoff or any kind of erosion has nothing to do with Shady Oak Lake or what I would say would be shoreland. So it's a little bit tough to understand how we fall into that shoreline district, but I understand it does. But I think that she also mentioned that we have 10 variances, and I've only heard we have 3. We had 4, but it sounded like the setback variance has been kind of given a nod by the planners. I'm not sure what the 10 are. But if, as you all stood out at the property and took a look, this house that we're talking about, mostly that's of the concern. And if we look at the visual, it's up there now, those orange stakes with the stakes with the orange on them, that's how far down over the hill the back of the house goes. 12 feet on one side of the property, 18 feet on the other side of the property. We've got a 1.3 acre piece of property here, piece of land, and it is so far from the bottom of the hill, which is where there is, I guess, a wetland. But we're not, I think these ordinances and these variances are needed to protect sometimes, like maybe a neighbor, your house is too close or your runoff's going to go in their backyard or whatever. And we've worked very closely with Sather Berthquist, the engineering firm, to do the things that were required of us to say we'll put in a boulder wall, which is in our drawing. We'll put in a drainage pond, which is in our drawing. We'll do the things we need to do to make sure that if there is any question of erosion or any question of drainage where the water would go, that would be part of our plan. And I understood it that part of our plan is if we said we'll commit to a house that's under 4,000 square feet or 3,500 square feet, I thought that that had to be the size of the house. So if a builder comes in, they have to adhere to that. Not that they can come in and build a 10,000 square foot house because we have a 1.3 acre property. And so having looked at that and having looked at how little we're really affecting the bluff, and in that photo also is that orange skinny stake at the top, that's where we call that the man-made area, and it was man-made by the city when they brought in fill for the turnaround, which originally that was just a turnaround for Dominic. And it was also land brought in by our parents to build the home, so they brought fill in. So the first 10 feet of that property is very steep, but that again is the man-made fill that was brought in. And it's you know, a walkout. Most walkouts are steeper in the back than they are in the front. The house to the north of us, which was the Cheka home, which recently sold, they're built into the exact same slope that we are, but that house was built in 65 or 70. But we're not asking to do anything more than that. We're not asking to change the neighborhood. We are improving the neighborhood. Dominic isn't the most attractive road in Minnetonka, and there's a lot of improvements that can be made, and we think, you know, sure, there's going to be one new home there, but adding 2 new homes of quality build and we think would be improving the neighborhood. Our parents' home became an eyesore that unfortunately had to be torn down, and now we're proposing to have 2 homes put in there. When we met with the Planning Commission, standing in front of them just like this, and I'm sorry, I'm really nervous, Alex Hansen, one of the commissioners, he was the first one to vote, and he had a yes vote for us. And he had a great and a logical thought for why he had a yes vote. He said that, well, we're already approving 1 house for sure on this property, so what harm is it to approve 2? 1 house is already going to need a variance on the bluff, the other house, so why not have 2 homes? He said Minnetonka needs more housing, so how much harm could there be to have 2 instead of 1? The footprint of the home, the variance that's needed for that, I guess our argument would be that it's such a big property there's more than enough room to build a house. It just isn't up on the flattest part of the property. So this 950 square foot footprint or whatever it was, if we can go through the bluff, if we can cut into the bluff 20 feet, we've got more than enough room to put in a basement, a walkout, and not be affecting the community in an adverse way. And, you know, we'll put in the protections that we said we'd put in, boulder walls and drainage ponds and whatnot. There are 10 neighbors. There are 10 neighbors listed within 400 feet, which is what we were told. We had to make sure all 10 of those people were aware, all 10 neighbors were aware. They are. The majority of them, other than a couple of them, but the majority of them were completely fine with this proposal and actually in favor of it. A couple of them are elderly and didn't want to come tonight to support this, but they did not have a problem with what we're doing. And so I don't know if I'm making a great argument here, but I do have our Sather Berthquist company here, our engineering firm, and if you have any questions to ask of them about some of the details of lot size and setback, by the way, too, our setback being proposed is greater than the setback that we had with the existing home. The existing home almost touched the road. Our garage was literally 5 feet from the road. And our setback of 35 feet is equal to or more than a couple other houses in the neighborhood in the spur. There's one house that's that we're greater than, and the rest of them, you know, with our setback is, like I said, more than what it was before. The width of the lot at setback, we're off by 6 feet. You want 110, we've got 106 and 104. So that width is, I don't know, is 6 feet really a big deal for the width of setback at right-of-way? It doesn't seem like it, especially when the neighbors to our east, the St. Pierre's, is less than what we have. So I think what we're proposing is reasonable. We believe that it's an improvement over certainly what was there, an improvement to the neighborhood, and we're just hoping that you might agree. So I think there's a lot of other things, a lot of other pictures. You guys have already looked at it with all these steep slopes down by Shady Oak Lake. The one home in particular that's at Shady Oak, and yeah, these are the roads, and the one that's at Shady Oak and down that one. I understand what you were saying about 3 lots, but that's a steep slope and it is on the water. You're basically, you talk about shoreland district. Well, this home has a giant driveway, a lot of runoff, a lot of drainage, and it's right on that third leg of Shady Oak Lake, bordering the wetland there. We look at that and think, well, it doesn't seem fair that that house can be built like that and we can't. So, and the other photos are just all steep driveways that are clearly, I think the driveway slope that you look for is 10%, and these driveways that are in these photos are 20, 25%. A couple of them are new builds. And yeah, they put boulder walls in and they turn the driveway and go up and figure out a way to manage that slope. But it feels very frustrating when you drive around close to our parents' house and in Minnetonka in general and see one home after another with walkouts in the back, steep slopes. You know, what are the reasons that they got approved and we didn't? It's hard to follow. And then that building on Shady Oak next to Lone Lake, that one, again, very steep slope, and I'm not quite sure that I understand the argument that the area it affects with the slope coming down that hill, because it comes down to a road or a sidewalk, why that is any less of a concern than water or slope in the back of our property, where any runoff or water just goes into an acre of land, waters the trees. But this, they've got a retaining wall there that's probably 300 feet long that they had to build because of the slope that they cut into. Again, seems like what we're asking for is, 60 feet by 20 feet of digging into a slope. So it's been a long 6 months dealing with the city and it's finally at a point here where we can decide or vote or whatever we need to do, but we're just asking for some common sense and seeing that we're not harming anything and we're improving things, and we're very aware of the environment, very aware of the neighborhood, and we're trying to be very respectful of all of those things. So
Thank you, Mr. Lang.
Thank you.
The Planning Commission did the public hearing, but is there anyone else who would like to comment on this matter tonight?
I would. Jeff Abels. I'm at 5016 Dominic Spur, which is just down the street from it. I've had an impact from things done here in my backyard over the same bluff, just at a different direction. And I'm going to get very nervous while I'm up here. I don't like doing this. The property owner should be able to do what he wishes. These, if you're going to take variances to this point, let the gentleman build off the back of the hill, destroy that bluff. Don't take variances to the front of it that we have to see. Okay? Let them blow it off the back of the bluff. Don't give them the variances to put them in the front of our house, to where they're sitting on the street, where it was before. I don't really like them going off the bluffs. I have a house in my backyard off the bluff, put in these block retaining walls, etc. I deal with those now. And I'm still upset with this after 20 odd years. I've been there my entire life. But what was done to me there, I wish some of you would come look at. I know it was within the rights of that homeowner. So I'm getting off variance. This is my backyard. I wish somebody would look at. But these things, if you're going to let them do the bluff and do this, just blow the bluff out, then call it a day and get them off our street till we're not looking at these things, all up and down the block. Variance them back.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else who would like to comment on this item? All right. I'm gonna take it back to the council. And council, it's for us to decide. The staff recommendation and the Planning Commission recommendation is for denial. This is an appeal of that to go against what the staff recommended. So, council, it's for you to comment. Anyone, Councilmember Calvert.
Thank you, Mayor. I really appreciate Mr. Lang coming and calling me, asking me to come out. It's a lovely neighborhood, and it was a super cool house that they took down, which I was always intrigued by. I somehow ended up in that cul-de-sac many times and looked at that house. So here are some of my thoughts. One is, it's a high bar. I told Mr. Lang when I saw him that staff has to enforce the rules we have, not necessarily even the rules that they want, and it's their job to try to enforce those rules, and they're making a recommendation to deny, and that is often a really hard thing for our development staff to do. And while there were a few comments from the Planning Commission that indicated that, perhaps if our zoning code changes significantly, there might be more of a chance to build more than one home there. I was a little confused by, Planning Commission really deals with land use issues. I was on the Planning Commission, Councilmember Shack was also on the Planning Commission, and those are all land use issues, not just development, but also environmental protection issues. And so I was a little confused by the fact that there were commissioners that were just fine sort of looking askance at our environmental laws and ordinances in order to build another home. And we do have a housing shortage, and we do have certain housing types that we're missing, but what's really missing is affordable housing, and that is not what is going to be built there. And I know that that Chair Maxwell talked about the only thing that would fit there really, if you're going to divide it, is maybe 2 tiny homes. And so, and that's probably true even if we were to change the zoning code. At the time, we cannot change our zoning code. We have to deal with the rules and regulations that are before us now. And there are non-conforming properties all over our city, and there are several non-conforming properties right next door to this property. But what we are trying to do as a city now is to make sure that we are not perpetuating poor development and environmental practices. And when those houses were built, there weren't any regulations about steep slopes and bluffs or water protection or any of that. And so, you know, those things are really important to me. And it's not just protection of the water body down below, it's just general erosion. So I just came from California, where they, in a part of California where they don't often get rain, but they're getting increasingly extreme rain events just like we are. And there were some houses on a bluff that I'm telling you will not be there in a few years because they're at the top of a bluff, and that's where the water erodes the soil. And the reason that it's different if a house is at the bottom of a steep slope is because there is reinforcement so that the soil does not create basically a mudslide into the house. So it's just a totally different condition. You know, one of the things that I talked to Mr. Lang about is making sure that we're comparing apples to apples. And so, which is what I'm trying to do here. So I would say that from my perspective, you know, the council, I understand why one would want to build 2 homes there. I just don't think that that good development practices, aside from the need for housing, just because we need housing doesn't mean we should build it everywhere or anywhere. And so, you know, hearing what the city attorney said tonight, knowing that, you know, a single family home can certainly go back on that property, I am going to, I'm in favor of denying the preliminary plat for a 2-lot subdivision tonight.
Councilmember Wilburn.
Yeah, so Mr. Funk listened to me talk around in circles for quite a bit this afternoon when we met. We don't like to say no, and so the discussion was, is there a way that this could happen? And I'll go back. So I'm not going to go through like every property that you mentioned, but I will just say for the property where 3 lots were combined and that 1 house was built on what had been 3 lots. So the city said it's reasonable to have a single family home on that property, and that's basically what they're saying to you. It's reasonable to have a single family home where the original home was. They don't find it reasonable to have 2 homes, 2 lots, 2 homes. So like in discussing it, like I am, the idea of filling in the bluff and messing with the bluff, I just am not comfortable with that. And it's 2 lakes that it's not just 1 lake, it's 2 lakes that your property one on Shady Oak and one on, I'm not going to remember the name of it, something.
Minnetonka.
Minnetonka, thank you. Minnetonka. And I just, like, I know it seems far away, but that still doesn't mean that those bodies of water can't be affected by erosion and runoff and messing with that bluff. So I, with all due respect to this gentleman here, like, I would be more willing to consider a house more forward on the property than one over the bluff. The problem, again, this was me talking myself in circles. I don't know, like, if we were to disregard staff's recommendation and approve the lot division the way it's proposed, I think we would give you that northern property, you might not be able to get anything approved. So it would basically be giving you a lot that you couldn't build on. So I think, like, maybe there's something, another way, and it's not staff's job to design, and it certainly isn't council's job to design. But maybe there are other ways of dividing it, doing a twin homes. There are possibly ways to get closer to what you want. I just don't believe that this is it.
Councilmember Shack.
Thank you, Mayor. Sorry. Okay. So I've been working hard in anticipating some of the changes coming to the zoning code, potentially. We're very early stages of that, to keeping an open mind. And I've always kind of been willing to push the envelope a little bit on some of these, and particularly setback issues or things that can be really addressed via instinct. Does this feel right? Does this look okay? I'm willing to consider if we can take 2.5 acres and maximize the use of that by putting 2 homes on it. I'm going to really consider that seriously. The thing I'm not so comfortable doing on instinct is addressing environmental issues that people who are far more qualified than I am, who have come in and taken very deliberate scientific approach in identifying environmental conditions, and at a state level in an area that is surrounded by lakes, to say, well, it doesn't feel like it's going to impact the water. I think that is how, if I'm being a little bit editorial, I think that is how we've gotten ourselves into some of these problems environmentally to begin with. And so the thing that I really can't get myself on feel is to say, I don't really, let's give a variance on the bluff piece because it's probably not going to have a water impact. So I just can't get over that environmental factor. I'm certainly, I wouldn't even get there if you told me I'm going to put 2 $300,000 homes on it. I would be very excited, but I mean, there is some point where you have to do this balancing. We want homes, we want affordable homes. That's not this. I'm willing to make some compromises to get there, but I'm not going to compromise water quality, and we've worked really hard, particularly in this part of town, to improve conditions, water conditions, and I'm not comfortable compromising that on this project. I certainly empathize with the situation. I mean, there are a lot of properties in this city that if we could compromise on environmental issues, we could subdivide 2 or 3 times, but we've got such unique topography, a lot of water, a lot of wetlands, that makes it hard to take a 1.5 to 3 acre lot and maximize the use in the same way that you might be able to do in Rogers, where it's mostly farmland. So I just can't get there today. And I don't see with the environmental issues how we could make it work even with a different plan. That's not my job, but it looks like we're hemmed in here.
Thank you, Councilmember Shack. Councilmember Foster Bolton.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And Can you go to the variance, like all the standards? So this, okay. So, because I had all these questions about fill and all that, you know, the distances, and because when I went out to the property too, I was like, oh, this looks great. I saw those pictures and I was like, oh, this looks really good, you know. But then, you know, I listened to the planning commission meeting and saw all the maps and, you know, had all these questions. But then it was like, when Ms. Thomas was talking about, here are the 3 things that we need in order to grant these variances, it seems pretty, you know, straightforward. Like, that you can use the property in a reasonable manner if it was a single dwelling home. That I don't think we're, I mean, and you know, blasting out the bluffs seems very dramatic, and it is, and I don't want to do that either. But the thing is that it's not the, there's still a reasonable thing that you can do with the property, and that's building a home. And that seems, there are 5 variances per lot, and that's a lot of variances. And you need to meet those standards 5 times in order to get this. And that discrepancy is just too big. That's too much differential between what you guys want and what we can do. So I'm going to have to agree with the staff too. And I'd like to point out too that what I think, you know, when I go out and I look at the property and go, oh, this is great, and it's that feel. But the staff does this, you know, 5 days a week, 10-hour days. This is what they do. This is what their education is, what their background is. And I have to rely on them because I certainly don't understand and don't know about so much of the history and so much of the stuff. So I'm going to go with the staff as well.
So thank you, Councilmember Foster Bolton. So is this a 4-vote item or a 5-vote item?
Chair,
It's okay. Whatever you want to call me.
Will remember not to call everyone chairs.
I'm pretty flexible.
Mayor Wiersum. Yes, this is actually a 5-vote item because of the variances.
All right. So 5 votes to
approve the preliminary plat would require
4 votes to deny?
Correct.
Okay. So I'm always trying to move these meetings along. And I'm hearing 4 votes already to deny. That's what I'm hearing. Correct me if I'm wrong. In the interest of time, I mean, we could have everyone comment. I have comments, but we have 4 votes to deny. And I don't think we're going to get to any circumstance where we would approve. Would anyone like to make a motion at this juncture?
Sure. I'd just like to make a comment.
Okay,
I'm just, you know,
Councilmember O'Malley.
Thank you, Mayor. You know, all of the comments that have gone previously, I agree with 100%. You know, just a couple of quick points that I wanted to make. I spent a lot of time looking at this. I sent in questions. Ms. Thomas was very gracious in responding to, you know, kind of very detailed questions I sent. And I really tried to come into this with an open mind. We can get into all of the, you know, kind of into the bluff, the variances and things like that. But that's what we're looking at is the subdivision. That's the question before us, not whether a home goes into a bluff or whatever. And we have to keep in mind, I think, you know, that we're looking at 2 lakes and 1 wetland right at the bottom of the slope of this property. And, you know, that this is at the top of a bluff abutting, you know, in a shoreland district. And it is grandfathered in for a 1,900 square foot footprint right now, if it's built within time is ticking. And, you know, we have to also look beyond all of these other things at precedent. If we grant this as a precedent, there are a lot of steep slope and bluff properties including my own, I might say. So I'm hemming myself in here to a certain extent, and my neighbors in Minnetonka. And if we were to grant this, you know, in addition to everything else, then I think we're setting a very bad precedent in terms of other properties who would therefore come in and say, you know, some of the things that we get now, driveways and so forth, that's reasonable access to structures which in some cases were grandfathered in, and they need access to their existing properties now, or pre-existing properties, or properties that they were able to build on because they needed to have reasonable use. This is something that is not, to me, a reasonable use. A reasonable use is one lot, the pre-existing lot that you get to, you know, build on the original footprint, hopefully get some variances for, you know, reasonable use and modern contemporary standards. To me, it just hasn't, you know, as much as I wanted to, and I could, you know, empathize with the homeowner, I couldn't get to overcoming all of the other things that the other council members pointed to, as well as what for me is a very not good precedent to set. So I will, for those reasons, be voting no as well. And I
All right, that's good.
appreciate your indulgence.
That's right. Are there any other comments anyone wants to make? Did you have one? Okay, all right. So, you know, we need a motion. I did not comment. I mean, I went and walked the property and so forth. And the only thing I was going to say is that I appreciate the applicant's, you know, earnestness and desire to get something done. But really the issue here is economic. I asked him, why do you want to split it rather than just do one? And he said, well, it's worth more money. And it's economic. So I get that, but I don't think that the presentation made would cause us to, we do offer variances, but when there's a lot of variances and they're not based on, you know, I mean, I'll paraphrase badly, but I really feel like that, well, we disagree with those variances, so you think you should do it because we think our proposal is reasonable, that we have to hold ourselves to the standards, and our standards are our ordinances and the exceptions. And I hesitate with the word precedent, because each lot is so unique in Minnetonka, that each project lives and dies based on its own merits. But precedent is a factor in terms of what happens at one lot will influence another, but each one is independent. So from a legal perspective, I don't like the word precedent. I prefer the word, okay, the concept that one project instructs what can be done on another project. But again, precedents in Minnetonka hardly exist because there are no two lots that are alike. So anyway, pardon my nitpicking on that. But anyway, I agree with the recommendations here, and I would, I think the votes are going to be to deny, but if someone would like to make a motion, Councilmember Calvert.
Thank you, Mayor. I will make the motion to adopt the resolution denying the proposal.
And is there a second? Councilmember Shack?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll second.
All right, we've got a motion by Councilmember Calvert and a second by Councilmember Shack. You know, this is a tough one. We don't like to say no. I mean, this is not a fun part of the job. But I also think we need to uphold the standards and the ordinances that have been passed, because we passed those ordinances, our predecessors have, and we did them with a lot of consideration. It's not easy to change an ordinance in Minnetonka. There's a lot of process that goes into it. So to ignore them is a significant issue. So we've got a motion by Councilmember Calvert, a second by Councilmember Shack. Ms. Larson, please call roll.
Romailly.
Yes.
Coakley.
Yes.
Foster Bolton.
Yes.
Shack.
Yes.
Wilburn.
Yes.
Calvert.
Yes.
Wearsum.
Yes, motion carries. Next item is 14B, purchase agreement for 12620 Minnetonka Boulevard. And is that Ms. Thomas or Mr. Funk? Mr. Funk.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Again, good evening, excuse me, good evening, Council. So before you is a purchase agreement, as the Mayor mentioned, a purchase agreement for 12620 Minnetonka Boulevard. I'll just say that I think Ms. Wishnack, I know she's not here this evening, but I think relishes that, or misses out on having to present this. This is something that she's been very involved in for many years, and so I know I'm stepping in and hopefully doing this presentation what she would hope it to be. There's a recommended action that I'll get. Recommended action for this evening is a motion to adopt the resolution to purchase the property at 12620 Minnetonka Boulevard. And council, as you know, this is a unique opportunity for the city to purchase this property utilizing our community investment funds, which we commonly refer to as our CIF funds, that have been in reserved for a project like this since 2009 for the Minnehaha Creek Corridor improvements. Go to the next slide, please. Oh. 1 second. So as it's getting pulled up, the next slide really kind of speaks to then our strategic plan relatability. And so as we looked at, as staff, as we evaluate the purchase of this property, what really comes to mind with our strategic profile is our sustainability, resilience, and natural environment. And if the council proceeds with the acquisition of this property, that this property meets the desired outcome, very specific desired outcome, to protect, manage, and enhance the natural environment. And what's on this slide is a map of the property, and at least this part of the corridor. The green boxes, or the green shaded area, I shouldn't call them green boxes, but the green shaded area represents the property along the corridor that is publicly owned. And I'll really kind of talk about the history of this here in a second, and thank you for the mouse that's hovering right over the property in question, which is, again, 12620 Minnetonka Boulevard. If you proceed then to the next slide. So a little bit of the background, and council, I know you're a little aware of this because we did have a closed session back on March 3rd, 2025. State law allows the city council at that time to go into a closed session to talk about and discuss potential property acquisition. And recapping that conversation, as you're aware that the staff were approached recently about the opportunity to purchase this parcel of land. As you know, it's been privately held or privately owned for its inception. And so part of that has been with the potential purchase of this property. We were presented with this opportunity from Joshua Wirt, who has a purchase agreement with the current owners of the property, and that is the Anderson Family Trust. And as we talked in closed session at that time, and we can now talk about that conversation of closed session, that we looked at a potential purchase price of $950,000. Since that closed session, staff has acted in consistency with the council's direction. And with that, in your council packet is a purchase agreement that was prepared by our city attorney, Mr. Nielsen, and along with Community Development Director Julie Wishnack. So at the conclusion of your packet, there is that prepared purchase agreement for this potential property acquisition. A little bit further diving into the history of this project, or the history of the corridor, and that's on the next slide, please, is the Upper Minnehaha Creek Corridor Vision Plan. So really kind of looking back at this, and this is where Ms. Wishnack, I know, is probably tuning in and listening to the presentation and listening to your conversation here this evening, dates back to 2006 when that first vision plan was created. At that time, there were numerous partnerships part of this project, and that was noted here: Minnehaha Creek Watershed District, the Three Rivers Park District, Hennepin County, the Minneapolis Park Board. Numerous cities have been involved in this corridor, such as Hopkins, Edina, and St. Louis Park. And really, if you look beyond the corridor in Minnetonka and the stretch of land that we just looked at on that previous slide, many cities between the outlet at Grays Bay all the way to the Falls in Minneapolis, many of the cities that have been instrumental in this corridor have looked at purchasing land along this creek area as preservation efforts. That was further enhanced then in 2010, where the City of Minnetonka and the Minnehaha Creek Watershed District formed a steering committee to look at the potential site of the Minnehaha Creek Watershed District offices. And so that was one site that was selected. They, as you know, they further have constructed their facilities just to the west of the marsh on Minnetonka Boulevard. but again, that illustrates just the amount of conversation and history that dates back on the significance of this corridor. Also during those time, back in 2011 and 2012, other creek projects were identified. Again, those are noted here on the slide, such as the Minnetonka Mills Park, where as of today, there's been trails, there's the boardwalk, bridges across the creek in that area. There's also park entrance features and a botanical garden. So again, back in 2010, 2011, there's a lot of thought process into this area. And then also future projects were identified, which is the continued land acquisition, construction of additional trails and boardwalks, gateway improvements, and a community play lot in that. What's really kind of where I'll wrap up my presentation is really the process that's also been part of this project, and that is really going back to the Community Investment Fund. There were hearings held in 2009, and they're very strict protocols for the city to utilize those funds. So in 2009, those hearings dedicated $1 million to be spent on projects that I just talked about. To date, $6,223 has been spent, so there's remaining funds of $993,777. So at that point, there are no further hearings that are required. So council, you do have the funds available to you for the purchase of this land. So we are ready to prepare to go towards a recommended action and discussion for you, Mayor and Council. Again, the motion is to adopt the resolution to purchase the property at 12620 Minnetonka Boulevard. You do need 4 votes to approve that. And again, I know you're familiar with this property, and it's being formally presented to you this evening for action and final acquisition. So with that, I turn it back over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Funk. Council, any questions on this item? I mean, we've been quite exposed to it, given the fact that we did have a closed session. So any comments or a motion? Councilmember Wilburn.
I make motion to adopt the resolution to purchase the property at 12620 Minnetonka Boulevard.
And a second. Councilmember Shack.
I'll second. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, we've got a motion by Councilmember Wilburn, a second by Councilmember Shack. Ms. Larson, please call roll.
Romailly.
Yes.
Coakley.
Yes.
Foster Bolton.
Yes.
Shack.
Yes.
Wilburn.
Yes.
Calvert.
Yes.
Wearsome.
Yes, motion carries. Item 14C is follow-up on the March 24 study session. And as you may recall, we had 30 minutes of open time slated for our study session, and our study session went long. There was a lot of content, and so we postponed this item from the study session, and so we're bringing it forward now. And so we've got about 30 minutes, and I think there are some discussion topics that were provided in the staff report. I'm pulling that up right now. And so we've got 3 council members, Councilmember Calvert, Councilmember Romailly, and Councilmember Coakley, who had items that they wanted to discuss. And so I thought we'll just kind of work through that sequentially. I thought maybe Councilmember Romailly, if you don't mind going first, and then Councilmember Coakley, and then Councilmember Calvert. You've got 3 items, so you can cover those. And if we can each kind of be mindful of time, we'll get through them all. So Councilmember Romailly, it's your nickel.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to report back. We had talked in previous study sessions about kind of bringing back to council our National League of Cities Committee meeting hearings, and I am a new member of the Community and Economic Development Committee, which met on March 9th at the national conference. There are 80 members of that committee, and the meeting went for approximately 2 hours, and I'm sorry, it was on the 8th of March, not the 9th. And the first part of the meeting was dedicated to welcoming the Canadian delegation from, including the Vice President of the Federation of the League of Municipalities, which is basically the counterpart to the NLC in Canada, except that they have 92% of all Canadian cities are members, rather than, I think we're at about 40% or something like that in the NLC. So very influential group, and they gave a very interesting presentation, including the fact that for 36 states, which I should note as a side note includes Minnesota, Canada is a top market, they're a top trading partner, and 70% of the trade products from Canada that are imported into the United States are used to produce goods manufactured in the United States. He noted that the United States has a $64 billion trade deficit with Canada, but that's primarily because of energy. It gets very technical, but basically they have a certain kind of oil and crude that we don't produce here, so therefore we need to import that. He expressed some mystification and I don't want to say frustration, but mystification at why at that point tariffs had been promised to be introduced against Canada due to opioids and fentanyl, because kind of that coming over the Canadian border is not an issue, and they had recently, in fact, invested $1.3 billion in border security. So, was just bringing that forward as a question for us as to whether we could answer why that was an issue. He did note that tariff impacts, because Canada will have to reciprocate, that will include United States residents, including, I would note, Minnetonkaans. Because of lumber tariffs and other materials tariffs, we're looking at home prices rising, vehicles, tourism, which obviously impacts us in Minnesota, municipal projects for road repairs, wastewater systems, and public buildings that will all hit us here in Minnetonka. Prescription drugs for our residents. Right now we're looking at some Medicare drugs having been tripled in cost within the last few months. However, many of our Minnesota neighbors go up to Canada to try to get less expensive prescription drugs. However, or order them online, but there will be tariffs on those starting points. So those are all things that will be impacting us. And so basically saying that they have been good partners. We are good partners here in Minnesota. We have Minnetonka companies that obviously work closely with our Canadian neighbors. So hopefully figuring out a way to, obviously at that point they were hoping to avoid that and look at collaboration. That was the first part of the meeting. The second part was all about funding and support opportunities that can be provided either via the National League of Cities or through their partnerships. The Gates Foundation has a partnership with the National League of Cities now on advancing economic mobility. It's a rapid grant program to promote economic mobility in cities for people who have been underserved or underrepresented in terms of economic mobility. They also have upgraded their housing supply accelerator, which started in 2022. It has a playbook and a field guide to help communities organize their thoughts and ideas to address local housing supply. I haven't connected with staff yet to see if that's something that we have utilized in the past. And then they unveiled their most recent tool, which is called Filling the Gap tool, which is part of a larger project that the National League is sponsoring called the Housing Comeback Project. And that's to help cities identify and apply for finance opportunities to expand and preserve their housing supplies. They've got interactive dashboards and spreadsheets and things like that. In terms of infrastructure, which obviously are roads and bridges and street rebuilding, all of these things that we do here in Minnetonka, they do have an IRA project tracker, which we can also feed into and get ideas about how other people have used the IRA funds for basically rebuilding infrastructure throughout the country. The IRA was implemented during the previous administration, and funds have been used to beef up infrastructure ever since then. And then many of the programs or the other things that they had us as calls to action, including advocating and communicating with our national elected to communicate the importance of HUD and other agencies for municipalities. And so for many of the programs, everything from streets and firehouses to homelessness prevention, all of these things filter through, we get a lot of funding through federal investment in these programs that either come not so much directly to Minnetonka, but in our case sometimes filter through the state. And sharing stories of impact. So as things move forward and we see more and more impact, I'm already hearing from that from certain residents in my ward. They're asking us as a city, however, to share stories of impact on several websites, the Federal Grants Exchange, and the action alert pages on the impact of executive actions. So basically that's a really quick summary of a really long, intense meeting. But, you know, again, as essentially two major parts, which was the meeting with the Canadian delegation, and then just resources that we can take advantage of as a city, but also how we can help the National League of Cities give information to other people, and then of course advocating with our electeds at the state and the national level to hopefully help the federal administration understand the importance of investing in our local communities and keeping these funds flowing, and just both for us on a municipal level and for our individual citizens. So that's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Mailey. Next, Councilmember Coakley, you wanted to talk about land trust, housing, and funding.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Well, so we had funding for $7,500 that land trust owners could request if they meet the income requirement. I'm not for sure how. I can't really remember how we received the funds and how, but I know the funds had ended. And my question was, if we're going to continue to support land trust housing, I was just wondering if we could continue to support land trust owners, because one of the things that I think about when someone purchases a land trust home, sometimes their income is not moving up as quick as we, you know, may think that people's incomes are moving up. And sometimes when they purchase these homes, you know, they have some really high-end costs to maybe get roofing or air conditioning units or anything that's pretty spendy, and sometimes they don't expect it. I know we had a resident in our city who did notice that I think it was her roof or something, I can't even remember, it's been a while now, that needed some work, and before she moved into her home, she ended up mentioning it. It may be another, I'm not for sure what it was, but whatever it was, I know it was pretty spendy, and she ended up mentioning it beforehand, and she did get that situation taken care of through the land trust program through Homes Within Reach. But, you know, everyone's not as detailed when they're purchasing a home, because a lot of times these are first-time home buyers, and so they haven't, you know, they don't know really sometimes what to look for. And so if we're going to continue to support land trust homes, I'm hoping that we can continue to support funding to assist folks as they live in these type of homes. So that's pretty much what I want to say.
Great. Thank you, Councilmember Coakley. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. And maybe we can talk about this when Julie's back and we have our housing session coming up. But nothing would stop, not that this isn't necessarily what Kizzy's asking for, but nothing would stop a land trust homeowner from getting one of the other loans in the programs that we have, right? So that pot of money regarding the grants has expired, but the home improvement, there's two kinds of loans, right? And they can get that.
Ms. Thomas.
Yeah, Mayor and Commissioner Shack, you're exactly correct. The city has several different programs, loan programs that are outside of land trusts that any homeowner in our community can apply for.
Councilmember Coakley.
One more comment. I'm just commenting because what Rebecca, Councilmember Shack just stated. It just kind of depends on their income, because when someone purchases a home, then that creates maybe an income deficiency. So that just determines if the income will meet, and so I'm just speaking from experience. So, yeah.
And just to add to that, too. I mean, I do quite a bit of work with Homes Within Reach. As you know, I'm on that board. And I know that there are homeowner education programming and things that they offer because, yeah, it's a matter of money and it's also a matter of knowing what to do. And 9 times out of 10, somebody who is a Homes Within Reach homeowner or a land trust homeowner is a first-time home buyer. And you know, it's a bit of a fire hose. You learn a lot when you buy a house and you all of a sudden have a lot of new responsibilities that maybe you weren't aware of. It sounded great, I want to own a home, and then all of a sudden, boy, oh, I'm on the hook for this, I'm on the hook for this. So I mean, I think it's both education and then resources available to people based on their needs. So I appreciate your comment. Anything else on that? Mr. Funk.
Thank you, Mayor. I just on this one, just add to Councilmember Coakley that in June we'll have the capital improvement plan as well as the economic improvement plan. So Ms. Wishnak and our community development team will outline the upcoming 2026 plans, and so we'll have an opportunity, Councilmember Coakley and Council, we have an opportunity to further look at our programs and have a more in-depth conversation on what that could look like moving forward.
Thanks, Mr. Funk. Anything else on this? All right, then, Councilmember Calvert, you have 3 items, and you can take them in whatever order you would like.
Thank you, Mayor. Actually, the very first one is very brief. So I'm the council liaison to the Economic Development Advisory Commission. There's a new commissioner, Scott Anderson, who works in the nonprofit sector. And we were discussing sort of things to be aware of and needs, because we got the results of a business survey, and because he works in a nonprofit, which in a way is a business, he just wanted to bring attention to the fact that so much of the funding for many nonprofits is kind of trickled down from federal funding, and that has essentially dried up. And he's just very concerned for the people in our community who are served by those nonprofits who really do, help them do things, including things like Homes Within Reach. So he just wanted us to be as creative as we can, creative in the ways that we were during the pandemic, to help our community organizations and nonprofits just like any other business. So I know that there are business supports out there. I think part of it is just getting the word out to nonprofits that they are also eligible for some of these supports, but we may need to be really creative, especially in the coming days, and weeks and months and possibly years, for that reason, because the need will still be there whether those nonprofits are there to support our residents or not. So that's the first thing. And then my next 2 items, or my next item has to do specifically with a session at the Energy, Environment, and Natural Resources Committee meeting at National League of Cities in March. And they covered 2 very important topics. One was there is a movement to start behaving a little differently as municipalities towards fresh water. So there was the Great Lakes and St. Lawrence Cities Initiative there, and Freshwater Mayors, which are 2 organizations dedicated to preservation of fresh water. And they feel that there needs to be a more cohesive national voice on water, because water is life. And they did describe some things that many of us may be familiar with, such as the almost complete loss of the Aral Sea, which was one of the largest freshwater lakes in the world, the loss of many African lakes, the drying up of Lake Mead. 25% of the world's fresh water is in the Great Lakes and the Mississippi River Basin, and what they are encouraging is communities all over the country to be more creative in their water storage along basins such as the Mississippi River Basin, so that the levees, which have essentially made rivers chutes all the way down to the to the delta, can actually absorb water once again, which is what they originally were able to do when floodwaters would just spread out. And it's the same thing in California, where you have these dramatic rain events and there's all kinds of water happening and it just runs off into the ocean. So they're trying to activate North America, and I just raised this for awareness because we may need to sort of speak with one voice if we have some interest here. I know they do a lot of work with St. Paul, but it's a nascent movement, and they're just trying to figure out how much interest there is in it. And I know that our community would likely be pretty interested in this. So I just wanted to bring that for awareness. And then the other issues, we're just giving a report on the other sessions within my committee meeting. So some of the items just to pay attention to legislatively are things like impact of executive actions on federal program access and implementation, workforce reductions, making it hard to get technical assistance. So Minnetonka happens to not get very much federal money or state money or any other money. We tend to self-fund and for the most part. But for technical assistance on things that we might need, it's getting harder to find. So those were two of the big issues. And then there was a wonderful presentation and discussion on AI data centers. And I just wanted to review it's a huge growing opportunity and it's a challenge. We all use data, we all do it, and we need data centers, but here are some of the statistics. Data centers currently account for 4% of total U.S. electricity demand, and it's expected to rise to 9% by 2033. States experiencing rapid computing facility growth, such as Virginia and Texas, have seen the largest increases in commercial electricity demand over the past 5 years. Electricity demand in the U.S. is projected to grow by 15 to 20% over the next decade. And here, these are the really interesting statistics. A hyperscale data center designed for cloud computing and AI processing can use between 3 to 5 million gallons of water daily for cooling. There are currently 1,000 hyperscale data centers globally, with nearly half located in the U.S. And they are eyeing, companies that want to develop these are eyeing water-rich Minnesota. So when they build a data center, it often takes farmland out of production. It uses 3 to 5 million gallons of water per day, and there are light pollution, noise pollution, and pollution issues because they often use PFAS chemicals to limit the danger of overheating and fires. So there's usually some PFAS contamination associated with data centers. And this is very interesting. Generative AI accelerates the resource demand of data centers. For example, generating a 100-word email with a large language model uses the equivalent of 1 bottle of water. So you send a 100-word email and it's a bottle of water. Immersion and ambient cooling, placing servers underwater or underground to improve efficiency is one solution. Closed loop cooling systems, recycling water to minimize waste. Alternative water sources such as seawater-based cooling are other alternatives. But the reason this is really important is there are land use considerations, including siting requirements, building size configuration and setbacks, ancillary support facilities, noise and lighting regulations, architectural standards and screening, fire and site security requirements. And what a lot of places are finding is that they just don't have appropriate zoning rules, as well as the fact that there is a strong move to preempt local control over any kind of requirements or zoning for these. And so it's going to be it's not something that we personally may face, but it's something that's going to affect our water systems here and our electricity bills and the electricity grid and our access to power. So, you know, the League of Cities is really looking to find out sort of what kind of policy incentives local governments are interested in exploring to encourage sustainable data center development, and what circumstances do local governments have leverage with or access to utilities or data center operators to encourage grid resilience and avoid negative impacts, and also about preserving community character, minimizing disruptions or placemaking values. And also just basic decision making if they do preempt. So they did talk about architectural standards, and they did show a Norwegian data center, which was a thing of beauty. Ours look like an ugly Ford plant, Ford car production plant, you know, just kind of corrugated metal. So you know, these are huge environmental impacts. And some of the other things that they talked about is the fact that the data that these centers produce it's garbage in, garbage out. If you have good data, you get good data. If you have bad data, you're spending a lot of energy producing bad data. So if you have something like medical research and you do a data search, you're going to get peer-reviewed studies along with a bunch of conspiracy theories. It all kind of goes into the soup. And what some people are pushing for is to make sure that there are professional peers that can actually review the data to make sure that we are not just perpetuating a soup of bad data. So that is what came out of that session. I just wanted to raise that for awareness because it's going to have a huge environmental impact here in Minnesota.
And you had one more?
Yes, and so the final topic that I just thought we should discuss is I think we are all very deeply committed to making our community as welcoming as we possibly can to all of our residents, and to embrace them and welcome them and make this a great place to live for everyone. I think we're all really excited to get a DEI commission over the finish line and hire staff. But I have always felt that DEI was a lightning rod term, and I am more interested in preserving our programs and policies. And so I just wanted to see if perhaps it might be useful for us to discuss just calling it something else. I just think it's a lightning rod term.
Thank you, Deb. And I think what we'll do is save the conversation on that for follow-up. But at least thank you for highlighting those, and thanks for the reports. We can talk about, you know, is this how to review, you know, our open time, how to use it effectively, and I think that's a separate topic for down the road. But thank you for that summary, and I think we covered some topics that otherwise would not have got time. So thanks for volunteering your ideas and your time. So we're going to move on. Nothing to approve there, but thank you for everyone. And then next item is appointments and reappointments. And we have an appointment to the DEI Commission. And let's see, I have a report I should refer to on that. And so bear with me. So we did, we interviewed an individual who, we had an opening on the DEI Commission. And so we interviewed one individual, Elise Dean. We had 3 individuals and only one could make it. And she interviewed well and is a credible candidate. So I am recommending that we as a council approve Lisa Dean to join the DEI Commission to fill a mid-year vacancy effective the 7th of April, which is today. So
And that's your motion, correct?
that's my motion. So if there's a second.
Mayor, I'll second that motion.
All right. So I got to make that motion. Councilmember Shack seconded it. And Ms. Larson, would you please call roll?
Romalee?
Yes.
Coakley?
Yes.
Foster Bolton?
Yes.
Shack?
Yes.
Wilburn?
Yes.
Calvert?
Yes.
Wearsum?
Yes, motion carries. Next item is adjournment. We always look forward to that item. Councilmember Wilburn,
I move adjournment.
is there a second? Councilmember Calvert? Okay, we've got a motion by Councilmember Wilburn, a second by Councilmember Calvert. All in favor say aye. Aye. We are adjourned.